Call the Cascade Charter Township Planning Commission to order for Monday, August 7th, 2023. We'll record for the attendance that all Planning Commission members are here. At this time, I would ask everybody to stand for Article 2, the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. We're going to move to Article 3 to approve the current agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve the current agenda.
Member Engel makes the motion. Member Moxley supports. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to Article 4, disclose any conflict of interest. Is there any members of the Planning Commission that would like to disclose a conflict of interest?
With the township? No.
I suppose we have only township matters to discuss. Timmy?
Nope.
Nope. All right. Hearing none, we're going to move forward. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the July 10th meeting?
I will move to approve the minutes with one small edit.
Okay.
That is in Article 10, last line and requested action. The word should be be and not me.
Matt, are you good with that? Be and not me.
Last line, Article 10, requested action. Thank you.
I'll support that.
Okay, motion made with addendum by the secretary, supported by member Rissy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to move on to Article 6. At this time, we'll acknowledge any visitors that are wishing to speak. While not required, we thought that it would be important to have public hearings for these two things that we're covering tonight. So if you're here to speak about those, I would ask that you hold until those items come up. Maddie, anybody on Zoom? Okay, if you are on Zoom and wish to speak, there's a button to click to raise your hand and Maddie can unmute you. All right, hearing none, let's move on to Article 7, Case 23-3781, Cascade Charter Township.
All right. Included in your packet here is a draft of a possible amendment to the Centennial Park Overlay Zone District pertaining to the permitted density for residential uses. Currently, the overlay district allows residential uses exceeding 12 units per acre as a special use, while the proposed amendment would revise the use to allow for residential uses not exceeding 12 dwelling units per acre. To provide a little background, the Centennial Park Overlay District was created in 2010 as one of the recommended implementation strategies of the Centennial Park Land Use and Design Plan, which was created in 2008. Previously, the Centennial Park area had very few development regulations to guide how the park would be used or how it would appear, and had been suffering from high vacancy rates. As a result, the Centennial Park Association partnered with the township to create the design plan and split the costs of developing that plan. The scope of the design plan was intended to establish a clear and regulated direction for new development and renovations within Centennial Park. And the plan addressed specific areas such as streetscape, signage, architectural continuity, and infill and redevelopment options. The overlay district was then created to provide some of the development regulations that were previously lacking and to establish some consistency with new site improvements to help bolster the image and marketability of the park. It regulates a variety of items such as permitted uses, design standards, architectural controls, and site requirements. And one of the uses permitted as a special use is that high density residential uses exceeding 12 dwelling units per acre. Density and land use throughout Cascade have been a topic of concern that have been brought up at both the Township Board and Planning Commission level. The proposed amendment that would limit residential density to 12 units per acre and would bring the density in line with what is recommended by the 2019 Cascade Township Master Plan and Future Land Use Plan. The future land use designation for the area is community mixed use, which allows for 6 to 8 dwelling units per acre, with bonuses up to 12 units per acre when residential is mixed with other uses. So we've already began a review of the 2019 master plan, which we anticipate to be completed by the end of the year. The goal of the review is to bring the master plan in line with the 2022 strategic plan, as well as provide a deeper look into what are the appropriate densities and land uses for different areas of the township, including Centennial Park. So I do believe Centennial Park is a good candidate to allow for higher residential density, and that's something that we can be further examined as we complete the review of the master plan. So tonight, the proposed amendment to the Centennial Park Overlay District is scheduled for a public hearing, after which the Planning Commission is requested to make a recommendation to the Township Board.
And Brian, to confirm, this is to align to our current master plan, and we can certainly, if we were to adopt this, make changes and ask any interested parties to participate in the process of amending our master plan, which is something we're going through now.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, we're undergoing that review right now.
So does anybody have any questions for Brian? Yes, Member Brunel.
If I'm reading this correctly, so we have permitted use for the CPOZD 1 through 15. And then we have the special use, which is high density residential uses exceeding 12. So if someone came before us and said they wanted to build something at 10, by letter of the ordinance, it would not be allowed. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct. Reading that definition now, it only lists that residential of 12 and higher is how it's currently drafted.
So is it possible, having read all this, that whoever created this meant to say high density residential is not exceeding 12 units?
I don't think so. I think the idea was that it's an appropriate place for higher density. It is a little strange that there isn't some allowance for under 12. That's definitely a little strange. And that's something, obviously this amendment then changes that, but that's something we can look at if a lower density is by right, a higher density is special use, and we can explore those options.
Okay, I just thought it odd. I was trying to figure out if there's a typo there or something.
Sure.
It was it.
Sorry.
Member Engel.
Brian, you just stated, and your report says, quote, I believe that Centennial Park area is a good candidate to allow for higher densities. Is that a township position? Is that your position? And what does that mean?
Yep. Yeah, that's my position. I think, that's an area that could see higher density. It's kind of a buffer between lower density residential and office. It's accessed by public streets. And now I don't have a specific number in mind right now, but that's the idea of working with our master plan review, is delving into that and working on a number that, the Planning Commission and board is comfortable with them.
And do you consider that to be a number greater than 12?
I would think so. Again, that needs more exploration. I don't know if that's 12, 15, 20. We'll look into that more and look at a number of factors, but I think there's potential to see that number possibly increased above 12 when we would change our master plan to reflect that. And then the ordinance could always be revised.
Any further questions, Member Engel?
Yes. So are you, as the township planner, in support of this amendment or not in support of the amendment?
I think it's not a problem to revise it to our current master plan. Again, I'd encourage us to relook at that as we're reviewing our master plan to see if that should be increased. I'm not opposed to having it match that now. And again, I'd encourage us to revisit it and maybe come to a higher number. But I think that needs more exploration and working with, McKenna as our consultant who has experience with that as well, working with them to figure out what that number would be.
Yeah, thanks.
Member Roland and then Member Brunel.
Yeah, I don't understand something, so I just need you to kind of explain it to me. Mm-hmm. Future land use designation is community mixed use, 6 to 8 dwellings with bonus up to 12 acres when residential is mixed with other uses. I don't understand any of that. So, I mean, is it community mixed? Is it
so that's
residential
right.
Mixed?
We have our different definitions in our future land use map. So one of those is that community mixed residential, like we have that rural residential we were looking at near the airport. So that's just the title of that land use designation. And then it defines that further in the future land use plan of here's recommended uses, here's recommended densities for that area. So that area includes Centennial Park and other areas along 28th Street as well.
So there's a community mixed use and then a residential mixed use. There's two different designations there.
I don't think there's one called residential mixed use. This is the name of the larger one, and then allows mixed use within that and allows straight residential as well, but higher densities for a project that has mixed uses within the specific project is how the master plan reads.
Okay. And Member Brunel.
So based on your answers to member Engel, I generate some new ones. So thank you for providing the data on some recent developments. So like Redwood is 5.9 units per acre, Edward Rose 6.8, Ridges of Cascade 10, Redwood 6.1. So this is, so at 12, we're already higher, if not highest density we've done in a long time, right?
Correct. Yes.
So I guess I was in the impression that you thought 12 was the appropriate number when I came to the meeting today, but it sounds like you're maybe supportive higher.
I think that's worth further exploring, and I think there is opportunity.
Can you explain the rationale for why that is, those? Because
I think he's saying it's open to explore.
Yeah.
We're trying to put him on record, and when we've done that to previous staff members, they've been burned at the stake. So
okay.
Sure
well, I'm
really
not trying to do that. I'm just trying to understand what makes an area good for that. Is it wider roads? Because I've read the whole pack, and I understand they have exceptionally wide roads. That's part of why they put
right. There's a few things like that, like access. Again, public roads. It's not on private roads. Again, that buffer between lower density residential and office. There's a few things that would seem to make that area appropriate for potentially higher density.
Do you know the highest density we have currently anywhere in the township?
I believe those ones listed are the highest. I believe so.
That's the way it came across.
There might be I'm trying to think of the other one that's behind Walmart because Ridges has all of that golf course land.
That's Redwood. I've got that one in there.
Redwood, that's 6.1.
All right. Then yeah.
Okay. So 10 is probably the highest right now.
Yeah. And that 10 acres for the Ridges doesn't include the golf course land. I just took the actual parcel that it's on. So when you look at it, that's what it would look like.
Got it. Member Richardson.
I was going to ask also about that same sentence about the community mixed use. So it says that it currently allows for 6 to 8, but then it said that it says that it allows to exceed 12. How could it be both? Or am I just misreading that?
Yeah, the overlay allows it to exceed 12 as currently written. So the existing overlay zoning district in the area, the master plan caps that at either 6 to 8 units for strict residential up to 12 with mixed use.
And the max that we've currently allowed is 10.
Correct.
Okay. And then the proposal is to cap it at 12.
Yes. Yep.
Can we cap it at 10?
We can certainly do whatever we think we can recommend to the board, whatever we think is best. What we were trying to do, Member Richardson, in your absence, is align it to the master plan. And then when we tweak the master plan, which is coming up, and I've given them a goal of having it done by the end of the year. So in a short amount of time, that would be the time to research it and let them make a recommendation to us that we can then make to the board. But the intent of tonight's practice was just to align it to the master plan. And then that way, everything moving forward will go to the master plan. I hope that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay. Member Rissy.
So I just want some clarification. Did I and maybe I misheard this, but I believe when you were talking with Member Engel or answering his questions a moment ago, there was some discussion that the way it's currently written, we could not approve less than 12 units per acre.
That's how it appears to be written. Again, it doesn't mention any. Okay. The only time it allows residential is exceeding 12.
The reason I ask is because this is in fact what was written at the time the Ridges of Cascade was constructed. Am I wrong?
Ridges is not in the overlay district.
It's not.
It is not. No, there's no existing. The only existing residential in the overlay is the assisted living facility, which is its own category. Okay. There is no multifamily residential currently in the overlay.
Do you know approximately what our surrounding communities have units per acre? Just out of curiosity?
Just total. I was looking at some of those newer ones in Ada, and some of those are 8 or 9 units per acre, a max of 10 units per acre there. I think there's a very small one that was 14 units per acre.
Do you know about like Gaines or Caledonia, Kentwood?
Not specific numbers. I can definitely look into that one.
Okay, I'd be curious. I'd like to see that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Trustee Nordhook.
So if we bring this into the current master plan, would this project start until our new master plan is? Will it start before our new master plan is finished?
Which project are you?
This one.
It would have to align to our master plan. Any other questions for Brian? Member Bruno?
Well, to clarify that, it would have to align to the amendment to the overlay, which happens to align to the master plan, correct?
Correct. Okay. Any other questions for Brian? All right. Thank you, Brian. I'm sure we'll be pulling you back. Okay. Let's go to public hearing and then we can talk amongst ourselves. Do I hear a motion to go to public hearing?
Motion to go to public hearing.
Motion by Member Ringo, supported by Member Rissy.
Reluctantly.
All right, folks, here's how we're going to do this. We have a 5 minute per person. There's a lot of you, and I think you all want to speak, which is awesome. And we really do want to hear from you. So what I would ask is when you come forward, state your name and your address. If you don't want to state your address, it's, if you're not part of Cascade Township, just your relationship to what we're doing here. So Mr. Member Rissy, if you don't mind being my timekeeper.
We got it right here.
Thank you. So whomever would like to come forward, just come to the mic. You don't have to raise your hand. Just come on forward and give me your name, address. And once you do that, Member Rissy, start the clock.
Hi, my name is Glenn Turek. I'm a Cascade Township resident. I live at 7199 Mooring Heights Court, Southeast Grand Rapids, Michigan 49546. I am here with my family and my team. We're going to be each taking turns presenting 5 minutes of our presentation. What we want to show you is a development that we call the Grand Cascade. It's a luxury multifamily development. My wife and I purchased the land that this development would go on in 1995, 28 years ago. We've had it on the market for sale off and on over the last 28 years, and now seems to be the right time with the current strategic plan that we have in place, the 2022 strategic plan. We have the current housing crisis, and we also have an office market recession, probably one of the greatest that we've had in the history of the business part. The 2010 overlay that we've been talking about was actually created by a joint effort between the township and our business owners in the park. We each paid $25,000. We were all assessed in the park to help pay this outside consultant that came in to tell us, this is what you need to do. You got a special park here. There's 5 ways to get in and out. And this park can be special. And so the overlay was created for many reasons. Brian went over a bunch of them, but the adding of high density residential as a permitted special use is a big game changer for the park. It will promote and encourage a growing local economy and rejuvenate that business park, which has been languishing since COVID. Centennial Park currently has approximately 180,000 square feet of vacant office space. The office market is not looking good either for a while. We're predicting maybe we can get healthy by 2040. That's a long ways off. A luxury multifamily development in the park would be a shot of fresh espresso to that park. It would bring in employees. And this development is luxury, so it's not going to be just any employee. It's going to be employees that are making over $100,000. We're expecting that this development would bring in over 300 new residents, and collectively they would be pumping about $8 million into our local economy. Little background on Centennial Park. It's a total of 128 acres. Our site is the most significant vacant piece, 7 acres, right in the middle of the park. If this capping occurs at 12 units per acre, this project would be dead. We could only get 84 units. You can't support luxury with 84 units. You got to have a minimum of 200 units plus to support luxury. And so even elsewhere in the park, you'd have to put together 17 acres. And most of the parcels are all less than 5 acres, except for the hotel Dr. Campbell's cancer hematology building is over 10, and then our site is 7. So capping at 12 units per acre eliminates any possibility of a luxury development like we're proposing in Centennial Park. So I'm here asking, why are we going to kill a possible opportunity to fill a housing need? The only property in Cascade Township that has the proposed amendment tonight that will immediately impact is our 7-acre parcel. The park is already built out. There's office buildings everywhere except for our vacant parcel. We've been working on development plans with Red Hawk for 6 months, and then this happens. The overlay ordinance is the only document that you can find the words high density in Cascade's ordinance documents. So after 13 years, why the sudden need to cap the density and kill an opportunity to provide a much needed housing alternative? No offense to the staff report, but everything in it is comparing with the past. We need to look forward. This has got to be future. I implore you to table this so we can talk about it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Being on time.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Drew Nelson. I am not fortunate enough to live in Cascade Township, but I live very close at 386 Pebble Beach Drive, Southeast, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 49546. I represent Glen Turek, Red Hawk Multifamily, and multiple other developers of for sale and for rent products in the Grand Rapids marketplace. As someone who does live adjacent to Cascade Township, a very significant portion of my personal and professional life take place within your community. But today I'm here to talk about the need. The rise of renters by choice has continued to expand year after year. High earning Americans making over $100,000 a year are renting now more than ever by choice. Over 25% of them choose to do so. I mean, it really says something about just the changing environment of the hows and the whys. As it relates, the median renter household income in luxury rental condominiums is also over $100,000 per year. As someone who spends a significant amount of time here, why would we not want to welcome these new residents and the companies that employ them to Cascade Township by providing the housing they want? Another fact, empty nesters account for the largest yearly annual increase that choose to rent. Providing new senior housing alternatives is a prominent goal in the Cascade Township's new strategic plan 2022. A project like the Grand Cascade with underground parking, elevators, clubhouse, pool, and other upscale amenities that basically make this a country club for the residents would provide the solution. And again, I'm here to talk about the need. We have submitted letters of support from many people, including Housing Next. To summarize, new market rate rental housing is desperately needed in Grand Rapids and Kent County, which we all know. That's nothing new. Grand Rapids now has a housing shortage of 35,000 units, a number that just continues to grow what seems like by the day. New market rate housing for high income earners is the second largest undersupplied segment of the rental market. The Grand Cascade is practical and it is necessary. In the letter from the Right Place, which is a firm that hopefully we're all familiar with, which focuses on the growth and development of Grand Rapids, states, the project you are proposing fills a unique in-demand niche in the marketplace. It's time. We need this in Cascade. Why this ordinance now? Why would we want to cap density at this time? We have been told that all densities should be in line with the master plan. However, capping density at 12 units per acre kills an opportunity to fulfill the need and be a part of the solution. It also reduces the feasibility of amenities that make this truly a high-end opportunity. Centennial Park is special. Let's let it be special. This is exactly why there was the overlay that was created in 2010. High density in Centennial Park is where it is needed. It's where it makes sense. It's where it belongs, and it's where it can make a real impact. as I stated, capping the density kills the opportunity for luxury rental community in Centennial because it takes the units to provide such an opportunity for the residents that live there. If anyone took the time to stare at the map and look for the 20 acres of land in Cascade Township to build such a community, there isn't any. This piece of property is the last and only chance. It's worth it. Again, as someone who spends their time here, it's worth it to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kevin Lipke, and I live at 4900 Streamside Point, Ada, Michigan, and I'm in Cascade Township. Tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of my wife's family, who owns 7 acres of land in the Centennial Park Overlay District. My mother-in-law wanted to be here this evening to speak on the family's behalf, but she is not. She is home not feeling well. When Red Hawk Development approached us to purchase the land to develop a high-density multifamily project, we were immediately impressed for 2 reasons. One was the quality of the project, and the other was Red Hawk's desire to meet with the community leaders, business owners, and stakeholders to understand Cascade Township. One of the individuals that Red Hawk met with was Dr. Mark Campbell of the Cancer and Hematology Center of West Michigan. Dr. Campbell is one of the largest office users in Centennial Park in Cascade Township. Dr. Campbell indicated that he has difficulty hiring doctors, even those making over $300,000, because they want to rent in a luxury development close to work. Dr. Campbell wrote, "I was surprised and impressed that a developer would take his personal time to educate us regarding the business plans and the market." Dr. Campbell mentioned that he has 25 physicians, 100 plus nurses, 50 physician's assistants, and 560 total employees throughout the greater Grand Rapids area. He understands the difficulty, the challenge, and the importance of quality recruits. He mentioned that, quote, "Red Hawk understands the demographics of community infrastructures that are necessary to meet employee wants, needs, and desires. Red Hawk has an impressive track record and a clear vision of what the next generation wishes, and he clearly plans to deliver it." In closing, Dr. Campbell wrote, "I sincerely hope the members of the Township Board will fully support the Red Hawk project as part of the ongoing maturation of Centennial Park." Dr. Campbell has been a resident of Cascade Township since 1980 and would love to see it grow tastefully. Dr. Campbell's letter is in the packet. Capping the density would kill any potential for a right density multifamily quality project. When I was asked to speak on the family's behalf, I became a little emotional when writing this because imagine, if you would, use your life savings 7 years ago to buy 5 acres of vacant land. The land is owned for 1 acre lots to subdivide. You have building plans to build your dream home on 1 acre land and sell off the remaining 4 lots. You plan to start building in 2023. Cascade Township suddenly changes the zoning to 5 acre lots at a meeting like tonight. Overnight, you just lost 80% of your investment in your future dream. Instead of closing the door tonight to a possible opportunity to develop a high-end quality project, I implore you to explore this with your eyes wide open. Let's form a subcommittee with planning commission members like yourselves, community and business leaders like Dr. Campbell, and the many others who have reached out to us with numerous letters and calls of support. The Centennial Park Business Association, groups like Housing Next and the Right Place program, and key stakeholders like Red Hawk to educate each other, to listen to each other, so that we don't miss an opportunity to develop an exceptional property and a project that the community needs and so many want. I'd just like to point out that if you take a moment and think, why do cities give 10 to 20-year tax incentives to try to relocate companies? They do it because of the employees, just like I read about Dr. Campbell needing this type of project to support his business. The people who are high earners and spend money in the community, talking 8 million annually. Having a project like the Grand Cascade gives you the people for free. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, my name is Mark Avis. I am president of Red Hawk Multifamily. And I'm really here more for the seller than for myself, which I'll explain why. The misconceptions of multifamily and these developments and the idea that we'll discuss in the master plan essentially kills any opportunity to build a multifamily project. There is no 20 acres available. This land was designed in the master plan in the overlay, which is an overlay is created for to provide housing density over 12 units to the acre. Every planner knows, and if you really think about it, that means there's potential for a luxury community, rental community, and to see the importance of that. But if you cap it, there's nothing left in Cascade. I know it. There's only 10 more pieces left in like Grand Rapids that supports a luxury multifamily community. I know every piece of property in the MSA. You know, I'm developing 3 of them. So there is a housing crisis. It's going to get worse. But to get rid of the misconceptions, if you look at this case study, I live in Lake Forest, Illinois. It's a nice town. Average home value is $950,000. They did the unthinkable. They approved the project over at 27 units to the acre, high density. Right next to it downtown, there's a map here. Since it was built, the value of those apartments are $500,000. $500,000. The average person that lives in that community is $320,000. These are people that wanted to stay. These are empty nesters, people that have money. And what happened since it was built? This is just like I want to do in Cascade. 4 new restaurants have opened. Stores have opened. It added life. You see people walking around. It used to be a dead town. 4 new restaurants. And occupancy in all the office spaces above these stores has decreased. This is an example of what works. And the world has changed. So do we want a community like this? They did, which I was shocked. God bless that developer. The next case, talk about, I've heard when I went around that there's a what is this going to look like in 20 years? It's going to look like crap. Well, I have a case study of a project that this is the exact same project I wanted to bring to Cascade. It's on the American family land they own in Madison, Wisconsin, their business park. And I had to go to talk to them. They had 7 acres of land next to their headquarters. Why would Aflac want a rental community next to their headquarters? Every single person that goes there, employee, candidate, vendor, business associate, is going to see our project. But they wanted it. And why? The world's changed. There's a business park there. Their employees, their companies wanted a rental community. So how did they do it? Same thing you can do. Instead of capping density, work with a developer like myself. Make restrictions. 75% had to be brick. They put restrictions on it to make sure it was the best thing possible. We could do the same thing here. I'm used to working with communities. If you go to the next page, you can see where it's located. And again, they chose me as a developer, so they gave me some credentials that I kind of know what I'm doing. But if you look at the site, there's 8,000 employees in this park. This is the first and only multifamily development in the park. 10 years ago, they never would have thought about this. The world's changed. People are doing this. The exact same project in terms of quality, I wanted to bring to Cascade Township. Not one change, besides actually lowering the density a little bit. The same brick, the same amenities, the same clubhouse, everything that Aflac approved, I wanted to bring to Cascade Township. I'm just saying that as an example. I think, they have some credence. Inside the business park is a brand new hospital being built now. Companies have come in. The park is built out. It's exciting. There's people walking around with their dogs. The next page shows the similarity of, Aflac and American Family Insurance and why this is a perfect fit. And by the way, why it was put in the overlay district originally. These are the only time you can see the words high density. It wasn't a mistake. It makes sense. It's walkable to all these stores. It will support Upper and Lower Village. People walking around, 300 people, residents that earn an average of over $100,000. These are people we want in your community. It ties into the existing sidewalk system. It is the perfect location for this. And again, I just want to make the point, at 12 units or even 20 units to the acre, it doesn't work. If you want exceptional, you have to have densities to support exceptional. This next page shows Well, density creates, doesn't, it's going to be dense. It's going to be high density. Well, density done right, if you stare at this site map, it's totally open space. And this is high density. Why? We have this, and by the way, this site plan mirrors the site plan that was in the overlay district. Ponds, open space, greenery, the parking's underneath. How can I do this? How am I a magician? Because the density allows exceptional. And that's important. Down below is Redwood's development you're comparing to. Again, comparing to the past. That's 6 units to the acre. Is that a win? I mean, it's a good project. It satisfies a need, but there's no open space. There's no clubhouse. There's no amenities. There's no pool. There's no dog park. It's not what people want. It's not what.
Sorry to interrupt you, but
yes, sir.
Your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Van Heitzma, 7625 Aspenwood Drive, Ada, Michigan, in Cascade Township. I work for Bradley Company, commercial real estate. Here tonight, representing Glenn Turek, the property owner, and also representing Red Hawk Multifamily, work with him throughout West Michigan. Also represent other, both for sale and for rent product developers in West Michigan. And here again, talking about need. As we go through this, you can tell we've put over probably 1,000 hours of research into this product. As you're starting to see through this presentation, there's a lot of background into this. It's something it's very needed. So as we go through this, we're talking about Redwood's design, right? That does not support high-end, all the luxury amenities that you want. So you want luxury, you want high-end, it belongs in Centennial Park. So why are we trying to cap the density now, right? The fears that we have heard with density being not capped, Centennial Park will become apartment city. Developers will buy and tear down everything and build lucrative rental apartments. If density is capped, there will never be 17 acres that we talked about in Centennial Park that becomes available. 17 acres what's needed to get to 200 units and do luxury and do exceptional. Instead of capping the density tonight, let's create a solution together. You have the developer here that's willing, is already here, is committed, willing to work with you. Let's work together and find a solution so we can have an exceptional product in our community. I live right down the road, right? This would be perfect for all the office space. Maybe we add restrictions, right? A maximum gross building square footage of 80% of the total land square footage, or no more than 15% of the entire overlay, less than 20 acres, can be high density residential. For sale and for rent multifamily housing are each limited to no more than 50% of the total allowable acres. Perhaps a minimum lot size of 3 acres, maximum impervious surface area of 60%. Right? There are better solutions than just trying to cap the density. That's just trying to put a number on it as we're talking about through what's the difference between 12, what's in between 10, why not 14, why not 8, we're throwing out 6, right? We're just trying to throw a number out there. Why are we trying to cap the density versus let's create the solution? What's our end goal that we want together? What do we want in Middle Centennial Park, right? People think lower density means more upscale. Smaller buildings are better. But in reality, density supports exceptional design, architecture, and amenities. Exceptional attracts the highest earning residents, right? This is what the housing needs assessment shows. There's 35,000 units that's needed in Grand Rapids area, right? We're not going to get there, but we have a piece that we can do a big part of that too. The right place, a huge economic development driver, says this is needed for the high income earners to create jobs. They're looking for tech jobs. They're trying to find sites to bring companies to, but you can't find the quality product. No offense, Redwood's a great product, but a tech company is not going to be driven in from Redwood. This type of product is going to drive in tech companies and attract them to Cascade Township. Let's allow for the exceptional product that Centennial Park deserves, right? The world has changed since COVID, right? Everybody sees that. We're in the office market. We lease office space. There's 180,000 square feet of vacancy in the park, right? We don't need new office buildings in Centennial Park. But what do we need? We need high-end multifamily to attract companies that fill the existing housing, existing office space that we have now. All right, so exceptional. 84 units can't physically and financially support a clubhouse, pool, and amenities. Cascade Township desires and wants exceptional. That's what Centennial Park, right, is meant to be. You look at who the occupants are. You want great employees, you want great residents. The Grand Cascade is sophisticated social living. These are examples right now are going up in East Park in Madison, Wisconsin. Exact duplicate. I've driven by. It's an amazing product. It's going up. It's gorgeous. You look through all the pictures. It's exceptional, right? So that's an example of the clubhouse. When companies are looking to relocate and pick a city, the first thing they say is, we picked Dallas, for example, because the range of housing alternatives it offered. Let's work together and live in the future and not the past, right? There's a huge need. Let's work at the right place, housing next. Let's bring in what Centennial Park serves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to continue on with,
Could you tell us who you are?
Kevin? My name's TJ Van Sluten. I am a software developer who's eager to move to the area, but unfortunately there are no options for me in terms of housing. So as you can see, the rec room is exceptional. We got the lounge area as well. And we have an outdoor pool and a game room, both exceptional. We have a shuffleboard, part of the game room. We have a weight room, which is part of the fitness center, exceptional. We have a fitness center, as just mentioned, and a cycling room as well, both exceptional. We have a mail room and a cycling center again, which are both exceptional, of course. And we have apartment kitchens, which include stainless steel appliances, quartz countertops, and a dog park, all exceptional. So there have been many letters of support that have been submitted, but in summary, on another project, the president of Cook Medical, Fortune 500 company, supported a Red Hawk development. Why, you may ask? It's because employees want a new rental community. They desire modern amenities. They want diverse housing options that appeal to different age groups, and they want an exciting development. And the rest of the packet, you'll find just letters of support for this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where's home?
It's actually north side.
North
right
side?
now. Yeah, Northview area.
Northview. Got it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, sir, you've been trying a few times to come down, so welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, board. I'll start my little timer here too, so I don't overstay my time.
Before you do, who are you?
My name is Kevin Einfeld. I'm the founder of BDR. We're builders and developers.
Okay.
And we are property owners at 5510 Cascade Road. And I was in here, I think we were all wearing masks a few years ago when we had Bridle Trail project approved, which is on Grand River Drive and Buttrick. So it's nice not to be wearing masks.
Yes.
So I'm here tonight to support this project in front of us. And why am I here? Actually, we're building 348 apartments on 60th Street in Gaines Township by the just west of the pyramid. And it's like, why would I come out and support a competition for doing that? So there's two reasons. One is just our community needs more housing, all types of housing. And I am in kind of a unique situation. We build a lot of high-end custom homes. Many years ago, I served with Ralph on Habitat for Humanity. We were both on the board. I've served 6 years with ICCF, Intercity Christian Federation. I'm now on the board of Genesis. And we have a huge population of vulnerable people. They just don't have houses. And I'm here just really advocating for those people. And you can say, well, what's the density? What's this? We need more housing stock. And we can just be out in the suburbs and say, you know what, we think 12's 10 or 2 or 12, whatever this number is. We need to figure out how to go and get more housing built. And it's high end, it's middle price, it's everything. It's affordable, it's tax credit things. I mean, as we heard, it's a tens of thousands of shortage. And I go to one township, well, there's, it's the two. There's too much traffic. There's too much density, and everybody's got their twos. And you look at our community and it's getting bad. We have this huge shortage. Rent is $2,000 for a basic apartment because it's to this or it's to that. And I would ask you just to look at this open mind and say, you know what, let's look at getting this housing stock up. And so, we just really have to look at this. Before COVID, the price of a house for somebody entering the market was $300,000. It's $450,000 now. Their interest rate was 3 or 3.5%. It's 7% now. So this demand for housing and for multifamily is just gone through the roof. Most projects in West Michigan now, people are waiting a year for their electric gear, the gray boxes on the outside for apartments. You get them overnight per house. There's just such a demand. So we really need to look at this. And I would encourage this board to just really look and say, let's look outside. When we developed Watermark, 5510 where our offices, it's that brown building. That was, I saw that in Sun Valley, Idaho. It was just a cool looking building. And it was just kind of a barn. It was an office. When we did those club homes inside Watermark, that was in Oregon. We moved to 50 Crayon on Fulton and Crayon Street. And that was a project in Oregon. So I like to look outside. And I think what this developer has done, he's kind of brought a kind of a national thing here. We don't have to go out and look for it because he's brought it. And so I just think if you look at specifically this site, this is an urban setting in suburbia. And to just say, oh, it's 12 units an acre, it makes no sense. This specific site, maybe that works on a lot of Cascade, but why lock it down at 12 when it's all pavement and buildings? So, if I was in your shoes, there's nothing to gain by just putting a cap on this. Just look at it. You can turn the project down, but bring in some regional people that understand. In Minneapolis, this stuff's getting built. In Chicago, I'm from Seattle. They're building this stuff kind of in suburbia, but it's higher density. And when I saw this meeting coming up, I thought, is this developer going like 6 stories? It's like, no, it's 3 stories. We can build a house this tall. I mean, this is not mid-rise stuff where you're like, oh my goodness, look at how tall this is. This is 3 stories. And, looking at the hotel, I think that hotel is probably 4 or 5 stories. And so, we're not building a skyscraper here. So people ask me, are you a green developer and a green builder? And I say, I'm pragmatic green. If it makes sense, we do it. I look at this piece of property, the roads are here, the water's here, the sewer's here. You can go build 300 units and go and, clear a bunch of trees and pound a bunch of pipe in the ground and have people driving from Buttrick to town to go grocery shopping. Why not just take the land that's already developed, the utilities that are all in there, and just use them? And so I encourage you to put a subcommittee together. Bring some people in that understand this on a national level. We got to, in West Michigan, we do a lot of stuff great, but sometimes we got to take the blinders off and just.
I've got to pause here. I have to stop you.
Yep. Okay. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Where's home?
Home is, I live in Grand Rapids Township.
Okay.
Yeah. And own property in 5510 Cascade Road and in Bridle Trail.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kevin.
We have any other? Coach Mills.
How you doing?
Good.
Just got back from Salt Lake City. Dave Mills, 7425 Ken Robb Drive in Cascade Township. And I'm here to support this project. And I'll give you a lot of reasons. I've lived here 34 years. I've had your wife in class, your kids in class. Been around the block. All right. And even was Marshal of the Parade. That was pretty cool. But I'll give you several reasons. It's needed. It's needed. And I'll give you one person that really would consider moving there someday. Me. And we got a big place, a lot to keep up, a lot of yard, a lot of stuff to do. Kids are moved out of the house. It's nice, maybe downsize, but have a luxury option. to do it and still live within Forest Hills. I love Forest Hills. I have put so much time and sweat and energy into Forest Hill Central Rangers, and I'll always be a Ranger. I don't want to be, you know, a Wildcat or a Bulldog or whatever's around. I want to be a Ranger for life. Okay. Brad Anderson would say the same darn thing. And I tell you, that's a fine young man right there. Just a little off tangent here. He does so much for the community. He wrestled for me. 2-time state champion, wrestled in college. He's as tough as they come, but he gives back. Does the bugle, honors the vets. He's proud of where he came from. I'm proud of where I live, and I want to live here till it's time to go home. So I support this project. I love this family. I know what they're all about. I would just put your guys, get together and figure this thing out. That's all I'm asking you to do. Just get together, listen to people that are experts, give and take a little bit, and do something good for the community. And I think that thought would be echoed hundreds, if not thousands of times if we could bring people in. Call them up. Okay. So again, I'm supportive of this. I ran across this quote, which I thought is very appropriate for this time. I'll pull it up here. Your brain will search for any of the answers you ask for. So ask magnificent questions. Okay. I think that kind of sums this up. It really does. You know, as a wrestling coach, my goal or job was to make better human beings. Not, you know, state champion wrestlers. That's great. That's a bonus. I wanted to build champion people for life. And I put a lot of sweat and tears into, you know, physical education. My wife was a calculus math teacher. Heck, I can't even spell calculus. But she put in 30 some years into this community. My son taught here. All of our kids were born and raised here. This is a great thing he's got going. Now, I know there's concerns in this. You work it out. Okay. You figure it out, but you don't say, you know, stifle it, you know, work together. So again, I'm in support, get a subcommittee together. And here you got the competition, right? Where's that young man? Did he have to leave? He left. But he's a competition coming in and supporting it. That tells you a lot right there. So I'm gonna stop there. It's been a pleasure to be in front of you guys. And you know, I was in Salt Lake City a week ago for coaching one of my wrestlers from Grand Valley. I was a coach at Grand Valley. He's one of the best UFC fighters ever, Tony Ferguson. I was in his corner because I love that man and I'll fight for him. I love Forest Hill Central community and I'll fight for it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The tough one to follow.
I got big shoes. My name is Kirk Driesinger. I actually live in Granville, but I work for the Hinman Company. We own 4 different parcels within Centennial Park and probably, I don't know, about 750,000 square feet of primarily office building in the Cascade Township. Wasn't planning to speak tonight, but a couple of things. The office market has changed. Since 2018, rents have gone up about 25%. Building costs have gone up about 250%. We own a couple of vacant parcels here. Probably not going to be putting an office building on anytime soon. We own, a couple thousand apartment units from mid-income to upper income in other communities around here, Muskegon, Portage, Kalamazoo, Lansing. And that market has changed. It is amazing how many people out there want a 1-bedroom apartment. The roommates are gone. They want to live by themselves, and they're 100, 150, 200,000 a year income, or they're retirees. And some of them go to Florida in the winter and it's simpler. A lot of them stay year round. It is a different market than what I grew up in here. And I think the biggest thing and what we'd like to see from the apartment, and what I was happy to hear they've already conceded, is the finishes, having the quality. If you get the quality product and it lays out properly on the site, it's going to be an amenity. And we're going to fill our office buildings because there are places for employees to work, but that executive who doesn't have time to mow his grass has that apartment to live in. So I think this would be the best use at this time for this parcel. And getting caught up in a density number, does the site make sense with the layout on there and the quality of the finishes? That's what I'd like to see. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. On forward.
Hi, I'm Mike Kosmauskas. I am the president of the Centennial Park Building Owners Association. I am not going to be as dynamic as a lot of these guys. I have some things written out here, and I'm probably going to just read them to you. I apologize if I don't make you laugh. And most of the answers have been answered in the presentation. I don't have an investment in this project. For full disclosure, I'm Mike Kosmauskas. I live on 1769 Laraway Lake Drive, Grand West, Michigan, 49546. The overlay district, it was created basically to give guidance because we had no guidance. Foremost Insurance created the development of Centennial Park and kind of took off from the park and left with the rest of us. Unfortunately for this body and the planning director, high density in this area was an obvious thing. You know, it was an inclusion in the master plan, taking into account all the known factors involved at the time in the interest of all parties involved in the future. My argument is that adding a simple amendment will lead to the detriment of the community due to a fear of overdevelopment. And I understand this fear, and I understand that you guys are fearful of setting precedent, okay? What I believe is that someone, somewhere, created a well thought out design document, taking a very pragmatic view of any business park, any, not just this one. And they, the architectural firm, cut and pasted verbiage into the Centennial Park design document that was intended to be utilized by future participants. I believe it was written in the best interest of the businesses and people of the township. The idea of mixed use is a very old idea, but it's become a new thing, which I think is good. Taking a step back and looking at the entire overlay plan, it tends to include many balancing concepts that no one person is going to agree with. But combined, it creates a unified betterment for everyone, in my humble opinion. Now, today, we are faced with a decision based on personal opinions. There's going to be a quick fix. There is an attempt to improve the overlay by making a few adjustments so it eliminates any possibility of too much development, which, if you really think about it, being this close to the airport, all but totally caps the height of any building here. And the location of such would be your only, this location would be your only chance of any progressive development in the entire township, which has been already said. This is it. This is our chance to make a dent in the problem. So am I allowed to ask questions?
No.
No. Okay. Did anyone see the newspaper?
Yeah.
Yesterday's headline? Yes. Front page, Grand Rapids Press. I know it's not the New York Times, but it says, how can we get more housing? That's not in your packet. That was yesterday. I have to admit that I am directly influenced by a book I read. Okay. It's called Why Nations Fail. And I'm not trying to throw insult around here, but to sum up that book in one sentence, it identifies why nations fail drives the reasons why economic inequality is so common in the world today. identifies that poor decisions of those in political power are the main reasons for unfairness rather than culture, geography, climate, or any other factor. What could the solution be? I'm not trying to take your job, but my suggestion is to table it, maybe even approve this, and then decide to cap it. Now we've solved both problems. We've approved it, or we've negotiated with these guys and approved it, and then we cap it at 12. Now we've solved it. We have one little micro high density spot in Cascade, and you've capped for the rest of the so that the next guy that comes to you and says, well, you did it for him, why don't you do it for me? Well, it's capped. We can only do one. I don't have a cock in this fight.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you are over, so I have to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please come forward.
You planned that, didn't you?
14 seconds over. Let him finish his point. Could I have your name?
Hi, my name is Karen Kilmer. I reside at 2253 Palmdale Drive, Southwestern Wyoming. I'm in the Panhandle by Granville. I'm here today in support of Glenn Turek and his family. Coincidentally, I've managed off-campus housing in Allendale for the last 16 years, and I understand some of your concerns. However, I'm here today to express the difficulties I had in helping my 23-year-old daughter, who is a college graduate, finding luxury 1- and 2-bedroom units in Cascade Township. The limited availability of such accommodations has forced my daughter to search for housing in the Granville area, which is not the ideal location she was looking for, but the ease of M6 was still a necessity and the area is newly developed. The lack of options within Cascade Township has made the process difficult and time consuming. We ask that the township work towards expanding the availability of luxury apartments in our community, ensuring that residents have suitable housing options close to Grand Rapids. I would like to provide a few whys. Firstly, there's a growing population of young professionals in the area who would greatly benefit from luxury apartment living. As job opportunities continue to expand in Cascade Township, these individuals seek modern, convenient, comfortable housing options that cater to their needs. By providing more luxury apartments, we can attract and retain young talent, fostering vibrant and dynamic workforce in the community. Secondly, the presence of luxury apartments attracts a higher quality of people and improves the overall living standards. Luxury apartments often come with enhanced amenities such as fitness centers, pools, communal spaces, which create an environment conducive to community engagement and social interaction. This in turn fosters a sense of belonging and results in more cohesive and thriving community. Lastly, the construction of more luxury apartments is beneficial for the Cascade Township economy, as these projects generate new construction jobs and stimulate local businesses. They contribute to economic growth. The increased property taxes from luxury apartments provide an additional revenue stream for the township, allowing for further investment in public services, infrastructure, and community development. We feel these apartments cater to the needs of young professionals, attract a higher quality of residents, and provide economic benefits to the township. By embracing this development, Cascade Township can continue flourishing as a desirable place to live, work, and thrive. I kindly request that the Cascade Township Board table the proposed item tonight for further discussion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, my name's Callaway Grainer, and I live in downtown Grand Rapids. I just graduated from Grand Valley University with a supply chain management major, and Glenn has actually been my mentor for a while now, teaching me about business, about Grand Rapids, about professionalism, and quite honestly, I don't know anyone who has a better understanding of real estate development than Glenn Turek. So I'm here to give you guys my reason why I think that this should go through to allow this type of development. And it's because I am 22 years old, just graduated college, have lots of college friends who share a similar view and dream that I'm going to share with you, and that is to build a life and family in West Michigan, and to see it grow and develop. But in order for it to develop and grow that much, it needs housing to support that. And so housing in general, I think obviously needs to go up and have barriers taken down for that. But honestly, a luxury housing apartment would bring in people that are going to build and grow the economy faster. And that's what I want to see in many of my peers also. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Sarah Nyman, and I'm here tonight in support of Glenn Turek, the property owner. My husband and I, who is also in attendance tonight there at the back, Derek, we are employees of a Centennial Park-based business located at 2959 Lucerne Drive in Centennial Park. We have resided in downtown Grand Rapids for the last 4 years, and like many others in our shoes, we have struggled with the current real estate market and decided to look for one-bedroom luxury apartments in the metro Grand Rapids area to meet our housing needs. As pre-children millennials with a decent-sized household income, we were looking for the following: proximity to highways and airport for easy travel, proximity to grocery stores, local shops, restaurants, live music and entertainment, a clean and convenient fitness facility nearby, parks and recreational facilities within walking distance. The proximity of Cascade Township, specifically the Centennial Park Overlay District, checked all of the boxes for proximity to the conveniences we preferred. So it was high on our list of future home options. As we neared the end of our lease downtown, we started touring apartments in this area and struggled to find any immediate or near immediate availability at apartments such as Ridges of Cascade or Redwood. While these apartments met some of our needs, they still didn't feel quite like the luxury one bedrooms we were looking for and lacked the availability altogether, causing us to explore surrounding areas instead. I'm sure there are many others in our shoes as young-ish professionals, ready and willing to contribute to the local community or local economy in Cascade Township, looking for the luxuries of downtown living with the conveniences that the Centennial Park area offers, but unable to find housing within a reasonable amount of time with the luxuries they prefer. As Mike, a business owner in Centennial Park, said, if we do not prioritize strategies to accommodate housing needs, potential future households will move elsewhere in the region to find the housing they want and need. This statement was true for us. Due to a lack of availability, we chose to move elsewhere and ultimately landed in the Granville area. While Granville offers some of the conveniences on our must-have list, we would have loved to land in Cascade Township, as the proximity to these conveniences would have been unmatchable. Not only could the decision to cap housing densities in the Centennial Park Overlay District affect the immediate economic growth of the area, but it could also prevent families such as ours from settling down in the area long-term and further contributing to the economic growth of Cascade Township and its businesses. For these reasons, we are in support of repealing any decisions to cap housing densities in the Centennial Park Overlay District. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Didn't really want to be loud.
There could be people online.
Everybody's been jumping up at the chance to get up here, so I guess it's my turn. My name is Sherry Hooper, and I live in the Forest Hills Northern District. So go Huskies! Oh, he's right. Oh, I think there's a bigger group of Huskies in here. So anyway, I'm coming up here for two different reasons. I was looking for office space 3 years ago, and I was working with a realtor. And he wanted to bring me to the parkway here that we're dealing with. And I just said, no way. I do not want to be part of Centennial Park because it's old. I wanted to be someplace fresh and new. And I wanted to be someplace that was where my clients would desire to go. And he brought me to Centennial Park, and I was really influenced because of the residential feel of the neighborhood. Your building alone, I look at every day because of the flowers that hang off your building. I look at the building next door with the Christmas tree in the glass area all winter long. And I've added flowers, and there's sidewalks, and there's condos, and there's a lot of different people walking all day long. And when I look out my window, that's what I see. And that's what feels good. And so when I think about the apartments coming in, I think that just adds a lot of that continuous residential feel that we're looking for. And as business owners, bringing in young professionals that can afford a nice luxury place to be, there's not crime that we're worried about. We're looking at more opportunity from what these young professionals can bring to us. And I'm also coming to you as a mom, similar to what the last lady had said. I have a 23-year-old daughter, and I spent months looking for an apartment for her. I thought I had found a perfect place at Patterson and 28th Street in the Foothills area that I thought, this is a decent area. And every night she has to call me while she walks her dog when she gets home from work, or when it's dark and she's getting home a little bit later as a server from a restaurant. And she's nervous about weird cars that might be following her through that apartment complex. Or there's just unique people that just are distrusting. I chose that apartment complex because the doors were supposed to be locked and they propped them open every night. I'm concerned about her well-being. I'm concerned about her and being in there by herself. And then she calls me and says there was a drug deal going on in her little lobby because somebody's selling something that they shouldn't be, when I put so much energy, so much time, and thought I put enough money into this place to keep her safe. I can't wait for that lease to be done. And when Glenn presented this opportunity, I thought, you know what? Cascade is safe. This is where I work. This is where we live. And this is where my daughter can be, not by paying that much more, by just being in this area that has really impressed me. So I really love the idea of this apartment complex. I love the residential nature of this business complex. And I really am in support of this apartment complex overall. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I was allowed to be last. I'll be last.
Yeah, no kidding. My name is Brian Lake. Grew up at 3422 Aspenwood Court, Ada, Michigan, 49301. My father still lives there. It's been our family home since 93, 92, 93, something like that. So grew up in the Cascade area, went to Pine Ridge Elementary School, went to Forest Hill Central, graduated in 2002, yay Rangers. I care very much for Cascade. I've seen it grow up from grass and pine trees to what it is now. And I want to see it continue to grow. I wasn't planning on speaking, so I don't necessarily have anything written down, but I'm thinking maybe I can come at this from a slightly different perspective. My entire career has been in recruiting executives. I spent 15 years overseeing an executive search firm here in Grand Rapids that recruited for the commercial furniture industry. We have a few of those here in Grand Rapids. And I can tell you firsthand the challenges that West Michigan has in finding individuals to come into the area because we just don't support that 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom luxury market for those executives. Those individuals who perhaps don't necessarily want to have a home here because they have a home elsewhere, but they do spend a significant amount of time here. I also spent a number of years recruiting for Pine Rest Christian Mental Health Services as their talent acquisition manager. Same thing holds true with physicians. High-end psychiatrists making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not all of them want to live in downtown Grand Rapids. They want to find other areas to build their home, to build their relationships, to live, and those types of things. And I didn't know much about this project until this point. I was here doing more research. I don't necessarily have a dog in this hunt. But it sounds as though like this is a much needed project for Cascade, for it to continue to grow and continue to develop. Too many of the buildings out there are looking ratty and dilapidated. And I think something like this is going to bring money to Grand Rapids, more money to Grand Rapids, and have a fair amount of downstream effect. So whatever it is that you guys have to do, I don't know the ins and outs of politics, but if you guys have to table this or approve it or just have a conversation with the team, I would implore you to do so. And I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Maddie, anybody on Zoom that is raising their hand? So can I hear a motion to move out of public hearing?
Absolutely.
Support. Okay, motion made by Marissi, supported by Ralph. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any thoughts? I have some, but I want to save them to the end. Yes. Marissi. Does everybody have thoughts? As we can just start with Roland and work our way to. Yeah, let's just do that. We haven't done this in a while.
You're gonna start with me?
Oh yeah, heck yeah, we're starting. Let's go.
I have a couple of questions, probably for the applicant, and then I have some comments. So, 242 units. Is that what I read in the packet?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer all the questions.
Okay.
That's what we were proposing, 242, which is kind of our magic number.
Yeah, I got to.
I just have.
Yeah, it's 242.
Like, how many levels is that going to?
3-story underground parking.
3 stories. Okay, and what's
60%?
We're discussing a density. We're not discussing this specific project. There, I get how you might see that they're related, but be careful that because we're not looking at an active project.
Okay.
Catch what I'm throwing?
Okay. Yep. All right. All right. So it was said before, precedent, right? I'm worried about that.
Yep.
I don't like the look of the developments going on in Ada. I don't like the 3-story. I think it looks horrible. I like the Gaslight Village in East Grand Rapids where it's 2 stories. I think there probably is a need, right? But I don't know. I mean, I've lived here my whole life. I was a ranger. I went to Pine Ridge, right? Class of '89. And I just, Cascade's not and I know times are changing. I don't know. Cascade's just not an apartment community to me, right? I mean, this is where you come to raise your kids, right? So, I mean, maybe I could get behind it if it were 2 stories, but that's not going to be economies of scale for them, right? So I don't know. I mean, I got issues.
Member Brunel.
I guess I'd second some of that. I mean, there were a lot of compelling arguments, but a lot of very deterministic statements as opposed to opportunistic. Like we kept referencing this overlay and we paid for this study, but there was an elephant in the room that no one discussed. The experts that they paid to publish the study, what was their determination for the best use of that piece of property? Park, wasn't it? It was not mentioned once. So I've heard a bunch of people in support, but I think only 2 people didn't either have a cock or a dog in the game. So that's one party. So I have one party who says this is the best fit. I have another party with maybe some more independents who didn't have a cock in the game who said it's a park. And then I look at some statements of this looks like it was a cut and paste. It does look like it was a cut and paste. And it looks like, honestly, in one person's opinion, the word not was maybe missing. I can't wrap my head around that residential would be good, but only if greater than 12. I think it's more like somebody probably saw the master plan and said, we can plus up to 12. And they said, this is a good spot for that plus up, not to go in excess. To go from 12 to, 27 is, not a math major, only a math minor. That's 2x and almost 3x, the greatest we've ever done. I struggle with that. And then going back to, I'm not a lifelong resident. Maybe I wish I was. I did raise my family here, and we chose suburbia. I'm not sure who said it. It was a very interesting statement, and it gave me thought. Most everything stated gave me pause. I tried to digest it and process it. It would be a perfect urban setting in suburbia. It's kind of cool. My daughter just moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. She's a recent grad. Been through a lot of these same stories, and I'll say a little aside because that's going to be an open item. I love Cascade, but maybe it's not as quite as utopic as we think. I had 2 cars broken into 2 nights ago. So crime is becoming an issue here as well. I'm on the Nextdoor app and a lot of people in Cascade are getting broken into. Complete aside, but it is what it is. If you prop open a gate and you leave a car door open, you're going to get robbed no matter where you're at, I think is the moral there. But suburbia, urban, what was it? I got an urban setting in suburbia. Sorry, I took some notes. Is that what Cascadians want? That's what I think that's my role. My fiduciary responsibility is to sit up here and think about what do Cascadians want. There's our logo. Why do people choose to live here? What is our core competence? What do we offer? And I'm not sure high density is that. I heard them, but I think it's a math problem. And I'm trying to get to the compelling argument. So I heard some need. We're not going to solve 35,000. We're not even going to make a significant dent in it. And when you get down to our numbers of 12 versus 27, they're both rather inconsequential in the dent. It sounds like to me a math problem. I'm really struggling with what were the compelling arguments in this. We can't do luxury at smaller units. I don't know, 240, well, I did 300 units at 500,000 each. Well, 150 units at $1 million each is the same product. I don't know if that's a fair comparison, but I'm really struggling with the compelling arguments as to why they couldn't scratch all those itches, achieve all those same objectives with maybe one being such high density.
You can't really do that in 5 minutes.
Nope.
Thank you.
That's just mine. Yeah, but I'm open to hearing everybody else's. Like I was open to hearing all the presenters.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a nice day.
A couple of things. Question for Brian. Does our future land use map or master plan currently designate an area for high density residential?
No, 12 units per acre is the highest that the future land use currently looks at.
Okay. And has the Centennial Park Review Board discussed any of this?
No, well, maybe behind the scenes, but nothing formal.
Okay. Is there a plan to have them discuss it before we make a decision, or?
Not more than the public hearing tonight. There wasn't anything specific planned.
Okay. So they're not meeting over this topic?
Not to my knowledge. There wasn't a meeting set up from the township for it.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I have right now.
Thank you. Amber, do you have anything you wish to add?
Brian, just to follow that. So they haven't weighed in on this one way or the other?
I mean, besides the comments tonight, I heard from a lot of the members, but no, nothing besides that.
Oh, no formal weigh-in by the group?
We did send mailers out to everybody that was adjacent even to Centennial Park, and the public hearing was not required tonight.
The public hearing is required. The mailing was
the mailing. I'm sorry. The mailing was not required for the public hearing.
Just usually when things go on in Centennial Park, the review board meets before we meet, and so we get a recommendation in the
for any site plan review. Correct.
Right.
Okay.
I think Member Bruno makes some excellent points about what do we want this community to look like. Just from Joe's perspective, I have 3 sons, none of whom live here. I think that if we had the type of housing that we're talking about here tonight, they would be, some of them might be members of this community. And I think that my sense is that some of these arguments that are somewhat persuasive, at least to me, that if you provide housing that attracts and looks to the future, you're going to bring in business that does the same thing, whether it's software, high tech, or the other sorts of desirable industries that we might want in Cascade. And I think there's a synergy between the housing and those types of economic opportunities that we might miss out on. I look at Centennial. Centennial is not a residential neighborhood, and it never has been. So I look at that a lot differently than I do one of the neighborhoods that we have out here, where we've struggled and made sure that those have stayed strictly residential. I think if you look at the definition of mixed use, it's exactly that. And I kind of lean towards this as an opportunity where you already have utilities in place, you have roads, you have the infrastructure, you have mixed use. To me, it would seem to be a perfect setup for the township to step in and try this out, at the same time perhaps setting up rules and standards where it doesn't become a problem or raise the types of issues that I think some folks are concerned about. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how we shape that. but I think it's worth taking a look at before we pull the trigger and shut the door on this potential opportunity. No, sir.
Thank you, Member Engel. Member Oxley, anything you'd like to add?
Well, this this issue is a little personal for me, in that my in-laws lived in a very similar luxury apartment complex in Novi, Michigan. Fox Run is the name of it. It was a retirement home, basically. I love going there. I mean, it was probably higher density than this is. Probably 4 stories, I would say, roughly, focused on retirement, basically. All parking was on the perimeter, big courtyard in the center, pool, central cafeteria, all that. I loved it down there, and they loved it. They were there for many years. By the way, as a footnote to all that, when they moved out of there to go to a assisted care facility, guess where they moved? Right next door, Sunrise. And they were there for many years and loved it there. Of course, they had an open field to overlook, and it was a 1-story building, but Sunrise is great. So I have no problem with the higher density development right here next to Sunrise.
Member Richardson, thank you. Member Maxley.
I agree with most of what you guys have already said. I appreciate all the comments from the community and the developers. I'm sympathetic to the young professionals that are finding it difficult to find a suitable luxury apartment. An argument that I do not find compelling is it's not necessarily Cascade Township's responsibility to provide housing stock. We hear this argument all the time about Kent County needs more industrial, Kent County needs more residential. It's not Cascade's responsibility to provide that necessarily. It's Cascade's responsibility to look after the residents of Cascade. If we need 35,000 more housing units, again, no matter what number anybody comes up with for any project, it's a drop in the bucket anyway. So to me, again, that wasn't particularly compelling. And there is more space in other places. There's plenty of space on Patterson behind Home Depot, perhaps. Kentwood has fewer zoning laws, clearly. I also worry that, again, like setting precedent where, we hear that many offices are vacant now because of working remotely and various other reasons, things that have changed. That was brought up, but this also seems to be something where if a development like this went well, what's to say that then it's not a cascading effect of tearing down apartment or offices and building more and more and more apartments around. And again, I don't think that's necessarily what the residents of Cascade have been clamoring for. And to say, like what Member Bruno said, to go from what our current max was, like 10 to 12 units per acre, to 2.3 to 2.5 or more times the density of that. A word that was brought up over and over, exceptional. I also react negatively to that word. I don't like creating exceptions. I like standards. And I also agree that 2-story apartments look better than 3, especially in our community. I also agree with Member Bruno again that the word "not" was missing, I think, from the original document. Not to exceed 12 units per acre. And again, everyone says this is important for the growth of Cascade, but I think the main issue is that we've not heard from very many residents in Cascade that are wanting, growth in Cascade. The reason most people moved here is because they liked the density that we currently have, I think. At least that's what it seems to be. And And I also, again, agree with Member Bruno that the main job that we face is what's best for the residents of Cascade, whether it's, anyway, I'll stop going on and on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Member Richardson. Trustee Nordhook, do you have anything to add?
Well, I do agree with a lot of what was just said. We have a responsibility to the residents that are currently here, not the residents that may come here. I'm a little concerned with the super high density per acre as well. The 28th Street's getting busier. The Walmart's right there, the office park, a lot of traffic. But boy, I'll tell you what, the village of Sand Lake would love to have a room full of you guys. They've got nothing but acreage. They've got public water, public sewer, public roads, and no industrial, and they need more housing. That far from an exit on 131. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Here's my take. And then, so I run a global software company. And when I look to build and put in new offices, I look for this. We opened an office in Dallas. I looked for an office location that was close to high density. Because our average developer is 220, right? And so like that's what we were looking for. When I went to Chicago and opened up a sales office, same thing. When we opened up another office in Tel Aviv, same thing, looking for the density. But I'm not here as the guy who runs that company. I'm here on behalf of the citizens of Cascade. And we have been told by our citizens over and over that they value green space, that they don't want density, that we are a bedroom community, which is why when we had another developer who acted very similar to the developer who just stormed out of here, wishing for more industrial space, we said no. Our tax base is built upon our residential citizens and our residential communities, and the majority of our taxes come from that. So the growth of more businesses coming to Cascade, that's not the community that we serve. We serve, and not to suggest that business isn't important, because it is, but the majority of what we're here to serve are those citizens. So I have concerns anytime a master plan, an overlay deviates from a master plan. I feel very strongly that it should align to that. And I don't have as much concern with this project as I do with the precedent that it will set. Office space is going the same way as the shopping mall. All right, there will still be a requirement for some shopping malls. You're seeing that in some cities. I've been to shopping malls in certain cities that are doing well, but the vast majority of them are collapsing. They've lost 60 to 70% since 2012. That was an article that was in the Wall Street Journal today. And I see the same thing, in my opinion, will be happening to office space. There will be a need, but it will be very much a diminished need. And so what will happen to Centennial Park if we allow high density apartments? I don't think that we can just put one in and lock it down and walk away. And I'm very curious at some point to hear from our distinguished attorney who is here. But I don't think that is even an option. I would love it if it was, by the way, because I do like this particular project, but I think it will open it up. And 20 years from now, we're not driving through an office park. We're driving through a lot of apartments. And if I were that future person driving through, I look back, I would think that I've let down the citizens that I serve. So with that said, I'm not necessarily, I'm very much in favor of aligning to our master plan. We heard often about, can you table this and get a subcommittee? Well, we're effectively doing that, and we have an awesome partner in McKenna as we go and redo our master plan. And there are going to be opportunities for this developer and more importantly, this owner to participate in that process. And if this project is that important, it can wait as we go through that, and they can be participants. That starts, by the way, you all planning commissioners will see it 2 weeks from tonight, what that process will look like. We've been working behind the scenes with Danielle to get that going, and pushing her hard to have that new updated master plan by the end of the year. We've got a really strong calendar to allow that, which perhaps even the interest rates are lower so that it makes it more viable to your developer if it does happen in the spring versus the fall. I don't know. I don't wish to speak to that, but I think there's an opportunity. So, I think if the opportunity is so great, let's let the developer work with McKenna and align our master plan. I completely agree that the word "not" was missing, but regardless, the overlay is still part of the township. And when it was done, it was a different township board. It was a different planning commission. It was different staff. All right. Just like we're redoing our master plan, it's time to look at that. So with that, anybody else that has something, Member Brunel and then Member Rissy.
Well, so what's interesting is I'm using your words because I wasn't sure what I saw, but to see the developer storm out was shocking to me because we normally have 9 members. We're short one because we have a new treasurer, and I didn't even know. You were the deciding vote, as far as I could tell. I wasn't sure which way it was going to go. So I just heard that let's form a subcommittee, let's work together, and he stormed out what could have been something in his favor. I don't get it. So that's upsetting to me and very disappointing. So I'm sorry to say that to you, but I would hope you're embarrassed by that because I certainly am. But I was leaning more towards, again, listening and hearing all of my fellows. Back to the question I think I asked Brian, and I'm sorry, Brian, to put you on the spot, but I hear that this is the perfect spot. This supports it. Well, define it. Is there a traffic study that says it supports this density? There seems to be this big crevasse and a lot of assumptions there. So I was maybe willing to explore, maybe it's a number bigger than 12 with some research and some analytics that show the roads can support it and the size of the sewer mains can support it and all of that. But then I am tempered by the study that was done by this other company, which I wrote down here, I think. Whoever wrote the report, I have it here somewhere in my notes. But anyway, I guess it's not really germane, so I can look it up. They came to a completely different conclusion. And why is that? And like you say, it was the word "not" missing. And 12 is already excessively high what we normally do. So why such a huge outlier? Why would we say it's a huge outlier? Maybe because we have a great partner, but I think that just fell through. So I'm done.
Thank you. Member Rissy.
I don't like the fact that there isn't a cap. I think having it be unlimited concerns me. But I don't know what the number should be. Like I mentioned earlier, I'd really like to see what our neighboring communities have. And I'd like to see how the master plan unfolds to and see what the experts have to say about that to pick that number. I'm not artificially just throw a number out of the air, pull a number out of the air. I don't think feels right. And I'm curious also are there any minutes on when they came up with that initially and any meetings?
I'm sure there's minutes from the planning commission and board meetings that we can dig up for those. So we could find those and circulate that with the group as well.
I just feel like there's a lot more information that could be presented to help us through this. And so I don't know if the right, there's, I guess in my opinion, I'm just gonna throw it out. I see 2 ways to go about this. And one is to follow the recommendation to cap it at 12 for right now until we work through the master plan process and review that information. The other idea I see would be to table it until we have that information and then make a decision. But I think the master plan process is probably the best process to go through to find that number. I just want to make sure that we have everything in front of us at that time when we discuss it, because it feels like we're missing some puzzle pieces right now.
I would just like to say I'm not sure 12 is the number. I'm not sure that 10 is probably not a better number.
You said 12 because that
I know, because it's
consistent
with the master plan, but maybe the master plan should be changed then too. If you want to be consistent, then
well, I think that's the
we have an opportunity.
I'm just saying, like, I'm not.
So at the risk, may I make a motion?
Is there anybody else that had anything else to say? All right, go ahead.
I would like a motion that we amend the overlay to be in alignment with our master plan, and that the density be revisited at the time of the McKenna study, And the applicant at that point can look to work with them and the community to influence that, but not here today.
Leslie, can we do that? Or are we, it seems nebulous and that's.
I'm not quite sure what the intent of that motion is. Yeah, the issue is really we're considering a zoning amendment tonight, and it would be a motion to either approve the amendment.
So I'll truncate that.
It's a recommendation.
A recommendation to either approve or table or not approve or approve with an amendment.
I was trying to be politically correct. I make a motion that we amend the overlay to match the master plan and cap at 12.
So we would adopt the zoning measure. You would make a motion to
recommend
we adopt the zoning resolution and before this committee,
which is not more than 12 units per acre.
Correct.
I'd second that.
Okay, so a motion was made by Member Renault and supported by Alan, Member Rowland. Brian, would you do a roll call, please?
Go off minutes from last meeting. Member Nordhook.
Yes.
Member Richardson.
Yes.
Member Moxley.
Yes.
Chair Nordike.
Yes.
Member Engel.
No.
Member Reese.
Yes.
Member Bruno.
Yes.
Member Rowland.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes. There's an opportunity. This is not done. I want to be really clear about that. There's an opportunity. I would encourage you to stay in tune with what we're doing with our master plan. And there's going to be public opportunities to do that. They're going to be in front of this body. They're going to be in front of the board. They're going to be in front of various other boards within the township. I would encourage you to participate in those sessions, and you'll have an opportunity to both contribute and influence. So I don't want you to think that this night was in vain. I don't think it was, and I think there is an opportunity to influence that. So I do appreciate you all coming. I know it wasn't the outcome that you were looking for, but I would assure you that it is not over. So
I would just also add that this is just a recommendation to the township board. The township board is the final decision maker on the amendment.
I expect that will come in probably the September meeting, but you'll see that. And they're also, I think there's a public hearing there too now, or
there's not one required. And there is the 2nd August meeting.
It will happen at 2nd August.
It could potentially.
Right. Yeah. There is public comments before they hear anything and after. So while there may not be a public hearing, there will be an opportunity to do what you did tonight if you feel that it is or would be helpful to the board. Thank you. Okay. Pull up my notes. All right, moving on to Article 8, case number 23-3780, Cascade Charter Township. Thank you so much for staying, Casey. There was more of them than there were of you, so they went first.
All right. So included in your packet is a draft of possible amendments to the zoning ordinance regarding the Airport Commerce Zoning District and area around that were developed by the Planning Commission Airport Commerce Subcommittee. The amendments were discussed at the July 10 Planning Commission meeting, where staff were directed to schedule the amendments for the required public hearing. Also, just a brief overview, since we had a couple of planning commissioners who missed that July 10 meeting. Currently, Chapter 14 of the zoning ordinance includes 2 subzones around the airport. Subzone 1 includes all areas around the runways and the majority of the airport area, and allows for a variety of uses by rights with little to no township review at this time. Subzone 2 includes the outlying areas adjacent to public streets and requires site plan review for non-aeronautical uses. The amendments touch on a number of items within Chapter 14 of the zoning ordinance and replace the subzones with new overlay districts to help regulate permitted uses in the area around the airport. Overlay A restricts the uses that are permitted on the east side of the airport, while Overlay B allows for aeronautical uses to be located within a larger area on the southwest side of the airport. Site plan review will now be required for all non-aeronautical uses, except those located within Overlay C, which is at the center of the airport, essentially between the runways. Non-aeronautical uses located within Overlay C will still be required to meet the requirements of the Township Stormwater Ordinance. So tonight, the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance are scheduled for a public hearing, after which the Planning Commission is requested to make a recommendation to the Township Board, and myself and Leslie are available for questions on the amendments.
Awesome. Any questions for Brian or Leslie? Member Renaud.
I'm sorry I was not here at the July 10th meeting. Excuse absence, I will know. In looking at the provided document, page 53 of 64, there is the AC sub 1 overlay along the east side of Patterson Avenue. There look to be 3 of those, each side of Oostema Drive, and then a separate one, which I think is currently, what is it, the either the MDOT or the weather station, I think, is there. I noticed in the new overlays that all reverts back to the underlying AC. I'm just curious why those have been kind of reverted. Is there?
You want me to answer that, or
was it you said the PUDs?
He's talking about the AC2 areas along Patterson, and the or AC
sub 1.
Yeah,
like everything else, I think I followed. I understand kind of the east of the airport. I think I understand the southwest of the airport. But what happened on that edge?
That's a drawing from.
Is that an older?
That's an older
long time ago.
A long time ago. That's that. Probably,
was that in the red line? Version?
Yes, that probably shouldn't have been put in the packet because it's very confusing because it's a older
previous version.
All right,
make older version.
Sorry,
I was confused.
That was a drawing
for a valid reason. All right,
that was a drawing that was being discussed at a time when we were looking at an area much greater.
Yeah, that one might have.
Just
this is the current.
Too.
This is the current proposed one with the overlay AB and
AC. It's just the next.
And this is the map, yeah. Right after
that mimicked more of the AC. The area that you're talking about along Patterson was AC2 in the current zoning, and what the committee decided was that should just be similar to the zoning in the rest of the airport area there because it's
So page 54 is representative of what is recommended, not 53.
Correct. No, I get that. I'm trying to do the delta. Sorry, I'm an engineer. I like changes. So what I think you're showing up here is the proposal, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Yeah, that's
where is the. I thought the page I was referencing, page 53, was the current, and this is the future. What page is the current, or do I need to go to the actual zoning map on our website?
Oh.
As presented, it looked like this was the current.
Right. I understand, but that's not entirely accurate. It's pretty accurate, I guess. It shows
we have the current.
It shows overlays that don't exist.
So therefore not accurate.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I will I'll have to do some homework offline then. Sorry.
No, understood.
That one on 53 is the current one. Just ignore the stickers on that.
Yep.
So 53 is the existing one.
Well,
ignore the stickers. I mean, if you see where the
if you ignore the labels overlay B and overlay A, then it's accurate.
Yeah, so
but you need to ignore the overlay A and overlay B labels.
Right. So there is a good one that shows the change on the same map, but if you ignore the labels, that one on 53 is the current map with all the purple or red being subzone 2, green being subzone 1.
Okay, so I just used the wrong adjectives that part of that. Okay, so on page 53, we have a subzone along Patterson.
Yes.
Yes.
It appears that has been dropped in the future. And I'm just looking for a rationale as to why that is.
So I think really the best way to look at it is that subzone 1 subzone 1 has been shrunk to overlay C. And so the area where there's not review is now much smaller. And the rest of the area has now become kind of subzone 2, where we do have site plan review. Scott, if I'm saying that, but maybe the simplest way to look at that.
I think that sums it up fairly.
Okay, so I was back asswards in my thoughts. So what you're saying is, I thought the purple was additional, maybe I don't know the right word is, encumbrances. That's not the case.
Yeah, in the purple on the current map, that's where we do require site plan review for non-aeronautical uses. In the green, we do not require it. And so now in the proposed amendments, it's only overlay C where site plan review is not required.
Okay.
And then all of the green now does require it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Unless it's an aeronautical, unless it's an aeronautical facility, in which case we have limitations as a township, what we can and cannot
require.
That makes complete sense.
Thank you. I listened and understood. Thank you.
I think we're still looking at groundwater no matter what.
Yes.
Wastewater.
Yes.
Stormwater, thank you. Stormwater.
One of those waters.
That was the groundwater.
Basically, it's OBE. It's obsolete by events.
It should probably be labeled better on the map because that was my question. Like, what's the green area? Is that overlay C? What is that?
We could have a better label.
Yeah,
and they may reflect that in the version with the key. Green may be designated in the key for the existing zoning map as AC.
Yep, AC district.
So it's just not labeled on the version that you have within the packet.
It is labeled on the master, like so as you're saying, but I guess I didn't catch the subtlety that we're redefined. So the name of the green is staying the same, but the rules of the game of the green are changing.
Outside of the C overlay.
Essentially.
Outside of the overlay.
Right.
I thought we were just looking at overlay changes. We're changing the underlying as well.
Right. The text of the underlying has some amendments to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this needs to be cleaned up a little bit.
We can ask her.
Yep.
The airport made a response. Would you please? You've already sent us a letter on that, but if you could be so kind as to interpret that, and also Member Brunel sent a question that I'd like to, if we as much as you can, but let's start with the interpretation.
So the airport has sent a letter with a couple of comments to the proposed amendments. One of the issues we discussed at length with the AC subcommittee group. The township has sent a response letter regarding those issues, and I think the letter from the airport is just a reiteration of their issues with that, and that is Act 95, which deals with the creation of the GRR Airport Authority itself, and the interpretation of a particular provision of that statute. The airport's opinion is that the township doesn't have the ability to regulate any uses on airport property, regardless of whether it's aeronautical or non-aeronautical. We disagree with that interpretation to the extent that the language of the statute, as well as kind of the statutory scheme and case law, as it interprets that particular section of Act 95. So our opinion is that yes, the township does have limitations in terms of what it can regulate for aeronautical facilities, which is a defined term within the ordinance. We do use the definition in the aeronautics code just to make it consistent with state law. But as it relates to non-aeronautical uses, it's our opinion that the township can regulate or at least require site plan review for those types of uses, regardless of whether or not they're on airport-owned property. The couple of the other comments related to reference to the airport layout and airport approach plans, which are generally plans that are created by the airport in conjunction with the with MDOT and the Michigan Aeronautics Commission. And there's a citation to a section of the Zoning Enabling Act that talks about ensuring that township zoning ordinances aren't inconsistent or created more inconsistent with an airport layout plan or an airport approach plan created by the Michigan Aeronautics Commission or MDOT. And while I agree that that's true, that the Zoning Enabling Act does contemplate trying to limit inconsistencies between those two documents, we read that section of the Zoning Enabling Act really to mean that the township zoning ordinance shouldn't allow for potential hazards or obstructions that would be inconsistent with or detrimental to maneuvering in and out of the airport, which is really the general purpose of an airport layout plan or airport approach plan, to prohibit or prevent certain land uses that might create obstructions for entering in and taking off at an airport. Our opinion is that the proposed ordinance actually supports that goal. The letter that the airport sent actually notes that the authority's desire for the area at issue, which is that overlay A east of the airport, is the intent with the airport layout plan and the airport approach plan is for that area to be a more low population density for safety concerns getting in and out of the airport. And our opinion is that the proposed amendments actually contemplate more rural, less intense, dense planning scheme than the current version of the zoning ordinance, which contemplates more industrial uses, more bigger buildings, opportunity for potential obstructions that might not be present with the current proposed version of the ordinance. So in my opinion, in our opinion, that is that the proposed amendments are actually more consistent with the airport layout plan and approach plan. Now, to the extent that there's a reference in the letter to non-compatible land uses, including recreation, schools, and churches. Those are listed as permitted uses in that overlay A district. And to the extent that the Planning Commission wants to discuss removing that, given the airport's concerns, I don't have an issue with discussing that or removing that. But as it relates to the airport's concerns, I think the way that we drafted and modified the overlay A district is more consistent with creating safety for the airport and maneuvering in and out of it. Yeah.
I was struck by the incompatible use of a school when there's the West Michigan Aviation Academy, which was just built like literally next to the terminal. So
that's why we put school in there.
Yeah. Yep. So that okay. So I guess there's a few things that struck me as very odd, and it's like, how can
right? And that was the intent of adding that section, and I think that was actually a carryover from the existing current language. That was one of the list of categories of uses. So that's why we added that as an option, knowing that might be an interesting or an interested land use for that particular area. So, but again, they raise that as an issue. So, if that's something the Planning Commission wants to discuss or is concerned about, we certainly can.
I guess I don't have any issues, but I guess they can elaborate. The school is odd to me, but the other two,
if they wish to speak at the public hearing, which they're here, I suspect they might. We might ask that. And if I'm not mistaken, they own all of the land in overlay A. So if they don't want a church, they don't have to allow a church.
Right.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah, and I think schools, I think there was some concern related.
Yeah, if they wish not to have the school there, they could.
There's definitely an advantage to controlling your own destiny. Right?
There really is. Member Rowland.
Yeah, when you say recreational uses, can you give some examples of what?
A park.
Okay.
One thing that they raise is they say such uses can also promote wildlife, which can cause safety issues for flights coming in and out of the airport. And they talk about, again, these can result in higher populations being in areas that the FAA requires and the air authority desires to restrict. Again, I think that the current way that overlay A area is designated in the existing zoning ordinance is actually more intense than what we're proposing for the now overlay A area, which would, like I said, contemplate a more or less intense, less dense area.
And Alan, to that too, I think one reason that was left in at the subcommittee levels because there had been conversations of having athletic fields on that east side, and so if that's an acceptable use to the township, we didn't want to necessarily take that out of there.
Okay, good. So building it is another airport viewing park.
That could probably be considered a recreation.
The current one's not a detriment. The future one wouldn't be a detriment, right?
All right.
Okay.
We could, again, if they so choose to, we could ask. Or anybody else have anything else? And we can always come back. Maybe we open it for public hearing and see if they wish to come forward. And if they don't, that's fine too. I get a motion to move to public hearing.
So moved.
Support. Supported by Member Rissy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. If there's anybody,
and all run up at once.
Wow. You're it. Welcome, Casey. Good to see you.
Thank you for being patient with us.
Yes,
absolutely. It's refreshing to see you have thoughtful deliberation and engage with the community. Good evening, Casey Reese with the Airport Authority. It's interesting that we've already heard some dialogue on this topic, so certainly adjust my remarks. I have no intent to be lengthy or long-winded with comments. There's two significant distinctions that I think we need to acknowledge. One is since the time the current airport zoning was put in place some significant changes have happened with state law. The first is one that requires community master plans that house an airport to consider the airport's master plan and airport approach plan. And I don't think we as a community have done that yet. Tonight, I've heard you talk a lot about the planned master plan amendment. I think that's a really good opportunity for us to engage as community members and create that link. The other thing that you've spent a lot of time talking about is now 4 different types of zoning via overlays over top the airport. And recognize that covers nearly 3,000 acres. And some of this dialogue you just had about, we're concerned about public gatherings like schools, yet the airport already has a school. Well, that's into the minutia of different portions of airport property and different zones around the airport that we're required to protect. As an example, on the east end of overlay A, where you see the A listed, we are required to protect that land from any development. Right. And that is not reflected in the zoning. That's not reflected in the township's master plan. We have an opportunity to get those 2 things to align. I would like to draw attention to 3 different opportunities now. First, with the future land use planning, and now with the zoning, both engagement with the subcommittee and this formal response that we provided. All 3 of those have been provided to the Planning Commission, to staff without formal response for us to digest and continue working together. In fact, I would like to appreciate and recognize a point in your 2022 Township Strategic Plan that I'll quote. It was note number 6 to, quote, establish formal and consistent communication with representatives from the airport. I'm here tonight to support that goal, but I would like to recognize that our thoughtful responses haven't been formally answered or replied to, and that there still exists a disconnect between our master plans that I believe should be the basis for this zoning conversation and moving that forward. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. See, before you go, Brian did send you a letter. I want to make sure you got it, because I'm now worried that the mail isn't getting there, because we did reply to the letter that you sent. Brian did, but we all drafted it. Did that?
That was, I think, specifically when the conversation came up about the Conrack project, speaking to Act 95. I think that's the letter you're thinking of. Okay. That was one. Yeah.
Did you get that?
It's specific.
It was specific to the Conrack, but discussing Act 95. And
so that was your intent to resolve Act 95 and clearly defined aeronautical use and aeronautical facilities?
I think that's what.
Yeah, well, it was our interpretation of Act 95 in response to the airport's interpretation of that particular section of the statute. Obviously, that was specific to the Conrack facility as a potential land use in that area, but I think the analysis extrapolates to the general scheme of the ordinance, and the subcommittee did meet subsequent to the sending of that letter, and I think when it received your letter, to consider amendments to the zoning amendment in response to your letter. I think that's what created the overlay C, or the designation of where the overlay C is, to give the airport more flexibility in that area and the airport proper.
It seems that we're functioning in pretty distinct silos. I think it's in all of our best interest to define that aeronautical use now, one time, consistently for all of us, and that was not how we interpreted that prior response.
Sure, right. And we're going to have that from time to time. I think the key is, to your point, that we are working together more, and I feel like with you and Alex, we're starting that conversation. I hope that is mutually felt. Like to get there someday with Tori, maybe. So. Any other questions? Are you willing to take a few? If not, that's fine too. I understand the position. Member Bruno.
Do you mind holding for a second? Can I ask? I guess as a commissioner, this is the second time I've been at a meeting where he's standing up in front of us, having sent us a letter, and it's unclear if we responded to it. Is there some? I'm new to this role, but twice I've been provided their concerns, and twice we've apparently addressed them, but none of that addressing has not been provided to us. how do I do my job if I don't know our response? So I'm going to agree with him that we have silos even internally. Shouldn't your response come to us as well?
The response came from the planning director.
Okay.
So.
But why haven't I seen either?
It was included.
I believe the planning commission received that in its packet. Now, the most recent letter that we are referring to tonight, we just received on August 4th. Yeah. So there's been no response to that.
The letter we
have to go back, but the last time he was here, there was debate over we sent it or we didn't send it, and then at the end, anyway,
we can validate it.
If we can validate, that'd be great, because I would like to see that response somewhere educated in what it.
But it sounds like he has. Sorry, we're speaking about you as you stand here. It sounds like he has not had the opportunity to, or he's not. He's connecting it directly to CONRAC and not more broadly, and perhaps we need to give time for him to do that. So,
but for example, so I can't go back because I'll probably the longer back, the more likely I'm going to err. But this concern was dated August 4th. This letter, I think that he's referencing.
That has not, to my knowledge, been responded to.
Okay.
No. We addressed that in our, I mean, this was just a few days ago.
So I guess my bad. And I thought I understood that you responded to this.
No.
I was wondering
3 days ago.
Yeah. I'm not surprised that she's not responding to it, but it sounded like she did. And I was wondering why.
Friday.
No, Friday for a Monday meeting.
I was shocked and all that she'd responded, but she had. I wonder why.
No, and to clarify, there were two letters at the same time that I believe Brian sent out. One was related to CONRAC, specifically to Casey, and then the other one was referencing distinctions between the master plan and the zoning ordinance. I think we discussed that at a prior planning commission meeting. That was to MDOT. That was a question. That was a letter from MDOT, not from the airport. And it was we responded to MDOT.
But thank you. That's what I was referring to. It was the difference between the Michigan Planning and Enabling Act versus the Michigan.
Yeah, that was MDOT's.
That was provided to us.
I don't know if that one wasn't.
I don't believe so. That's one of
Chris, we may have CC'd you on it, but
that was germane to our conversation, and that was discussed. That was presented. I don't think we ever saw it.
That was discussed during the context of the master plan amendment, and we responded to MDOT's concerns with respect to that.
So, can we more often see copies of that, because that was germane to the way I voted, because I was told that through hearsay that it was an issue versus planning enabling versus zoning enabling. But I never actually saw the document.
Yeah, you can absolutely
somehow.
Okay. Member Macy.
So Casey, the since we last met and you gave us some feedback, we created this overlay C box. I get the feeling that wasn't as received as well as we had hoped. So do you just not like the plan altogether, or would you like to see that box larger? I mean, give me some.
Yeah, I appreciate the implied intent of what you're trying to accomplish with overlay C. I think it took a complicated zoning approach and made it more complicated. I think there's some very fundamental questions that we need to answer. The first question is this idea of defining aeronautical and aeronautical facilities clearly between us. The second would be understanding how the state's requirements of our drain commissioner and review of site plans for stormwater purposes applies in this situation. And the third would be helping the township's master plan consider those safety zones and those protections that are in place with the airport master plan. So it is very clear to all of us. I think those three items are likely consistent between all of us, but we've kind of got lost in some legalese and jargon, and we haven't accomplished any of those three goals quite yet.
Okay. Do you think the master plan process will help facilitate the third component or the third concern? I mean, we are just starting that, and we can absolutely ensure that what McKenna does is inclusive of. We talked about Leslie and I earlier today about how do we include that approach plan? How do we, we want you to be a part of it. So, are you comfortable with that as being the approach that we can take to facilitate that?
Absolutely. Assuming there's proper engagement and
sure,
and a collaborative effort, I think that's a very important step that's been missing for some time. In fact, And Dave, feel free to correct me because I can't keep it all straight. But there was something that happened with either the Zoning Enabling Act or another state statute between the early 2000s when the current zoning was created and today, aside from Act 95 and the Airport Authority, that tied airport layout plans and approach plans to community plans. So that's an effort, excuse me, as part of a master plan update that should be happening anyhow. And I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, that puts us quite a ways in the right direction of aligned interests and protections.
Sure. I mean, let's call the elephant in the room, right? We had a period of dark where we didn't talk to each other for a whole host of reasons. And we're trying to move on from that, right? I think we've settled that matter. And so like we are having to kind of backtrack and start over on some of these things where in the normal course of business, we would have been talking during that entire time. So if there is a blip, we want to address it. In fact, I hope I speak for all of us there. So, Member Bruno,
I had one, and this is not my subject matter expertise. I hope you realize we're volunteers up here. So I took the effort of looking at, because you definitely hammer home that we're not looking at your authority's airport layout plan, ALP, and airport approach plan, AAP. I did my best effort to digest those and to compare those to our ordinances. And if you could be so kind as to point out a couple of how they're not aligned. Can you cite an example of a misalignment? Because I'm not sure I see that. I see things like maximum elevation of buildings, and I think our ordinance aligns. Now, maybe I'm painting it with too broad of a stroke, but I'm not seeing the so-called elephant in the room.
Right. Do you mind if I draw on your
No, that's fine.
Appreciate it's paper and not electronics. So there's 3 runways at the airport. Each runway has 2 ends, right? Off each end of the runway, then we protect what's called a runway protection zone. It's a trapezoidal area, and if you can imagine, it's intended to protect the overrun or emergency operation of the aircraft. And that is protected with people on the ground, right? So overlay A here, in the future land use planning suggests some kind of residential gathering in that area allows for school or churches. Simply put, we can carve out all 6 of those areas around the airport, and they will not be developed. I'd rather not suggest the potential for development in those protected areas as an example. The second piece is noise. Noise is a very significant issue for airports, more significant to our community lately because that primary runway was closed until today and it changed our sound patterns. So the increase of noise.
I noticed that flying right over my house.
The runway opened at 10 o'clock this morning.
Thank you.
Let us come up in a few meetings.
I'm glad to hear that. Actually. Some of our peer airports struggle significantly with noise because they don't have community protections in place, and housing has been constructed far too near the airport. So if you can imagine, the primary areas of noise are off the ends of the runways, similar to this. And the airport approach plan, let me back up, the trapezoid area, runway protection zone, primary focus of the airport layout plan, that ALP that's referenced. Noise in this awkward contour we've drawn here is a very researched and regulated thing. And that is what's protected with the airport approach plan. The airport approach plan breaks different levels of noise, 60 decibels, 65 decibels, etc., and suggests what types of developments are and are not appropriate based on that noise impact. Neither of those protections are currently referenced in the township's master plan, nor the proposed zoning. So those are two examples of protections that I think we should allow.
Anything? What else, Casey? Like, let's get into it. Like, what else is missing from this? Like that you would like to see? Because it's helpful to us. We may not necessarily agree with what you come back with, but I think the 2 things that you just mentioned are reasonable, right? So
very reasonable, and I wouldn't have an issue personally. I'm only one of 9 normally. Keep going. Can you send us a list?
We've started that list, and in all due respect, we provided markup to potential zoning ordinance, and the next feedback to us was the issue for public hearing today that was received on July 20th. So I apologize for the tardiness in Friday's letter, but there was no engagement between those two actions. That being said,
I'm sorry, Kate, were you aware that the subcommittee was meeting again? Did you have notice of that? Because I was there and you guys were not present when we had that last meeting.
We were specifically invited to attend one and presumably not specifically invited to attend the others. So if the assumption was we should have been there for engagement, that was not clear.
There's no assumption. I just was wondering if you were aware of that opportunity or not.
Understood they were meeting. Understood that committee continued to meet. Yes, sir.
Can we discuss? So what he's showing here, though, has been an issue as long as this runway's been there.
Wow.
Right. And no document that I've seen has ever had this trapezoid as part of it. So this is not something that we've necessarily.
Well, I don't know if I would necessarily say that. In the 90s, I was a member of the airport sound abatement committee that they had. And I believe, and Brian might know about this better than I would, but I think just about every development that comes through, there is certainly with PUDs and things, there's always discussion regarding the airport and its operations, as well as
require a disclaimer to put in the master deed that there's an airport operating in the town.
So we acknowledge that.
Okay.
I think I hear what you're saying about the trapezoid, and overlay A, for instance, is colored right through that. That I guess we certainly could change the shape of the lines, but the fundamental, I guess the reality is you guys own the property, and it's, I mean, if nobody's going to build a house there unless unless it goes through that process and you initiate that process. We're not going to initiate that process. So, if the runway shifted, then the box would have to shift too. So it's not, I guess it's a generic map, and I don't know that it,
So can I repeat back what I think you said?
Yeah.
So it sounds like we're at this, just two different means to the same end. He wants the map to go into that additional detail.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying our process, we can't make the map scratch every itch. Our process, when they come with a plan, addresses what he's saying. So he wants a map, we have a process, but they both end up at the same end product.
Right. I guess it's 6 one way, half dozen the other.
Why can't the map?
We could draw the map that way. But I mean, now, for instance, the runway to the east-west runway on the north side, if you guys built a new runway up there and that one moved, then the box moves, right?
That's correct. There is an alternate 7,000 foot runway included in the airport layout plan that's not designated here, that has approach protections in place with the Michigan Tall Structures Act. With all due respect, this is a great conversation. I think a very important distinction is also this clarity on aeronautical facility and airport facility that should be resolved. I don't know if that happens within the zoning ordinance or what the appropriate vehicle is, but I don't believe we have that resolved yet.
Mm-hmm. Just Casey, and I read Tori's letter here goes forth, and he says, in other words, the authority is immune from the township zoning relative to the airport. I know he goes on to define airport and his take on what that means exactly. But is that the airport's position that we can't regulate zoning with regard to anything relating to airport property? Is that the airport's position?
I'm going to defer to our legal counsel. Dave Caldone here is with Varnum, and will help with that.
Sure. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. David Caldon, Varnum LLP, 333 Bridge Street, Northwest. Thanks, Casey. So I think, as Casey pointed out, some of these discussions, like the one that you just raised, are things that we really have not had an opportunity to engage in really any significant discussion in. We did receive one letter responding again to the Conrack facility. And in that letter, there really wasn't a fulsome discussion of any of these issues or a response to the statute. It was really only one mention there. I did hear your counsel indicate that there was case law that was relevant, and we'd love to see some of that case law. And
it was cited in the letter, I believe, David.
And well, I know there's one case. It's the Lansing Airport case. You mentioned
DeWitt.
DeWitt. Yep. I know if there's other case law, we'd love to see that. That's the only case we're aware of, and that case was decided under a different statute from the statute under which the airport is incorporated. And as the township knows, the township is a creature of statute, just like the airport's a creature of statute. And the powers that the airport have, the powers that the authority have, are derived from the statutes under which they're incorporated. So the DeWitt case that is referenced here is really not on point at all in terms of this issue. And so that's the kind of discussion I think we'd like to have and explore a little bit. And I think in a spirit of cooperation, it would probably make sense to have some of those discussions. The other point I guess I'll note is the comments that were provided in the August 4 letter. Those are the comments that the airport is supposed to provide under Section 203 of the Zoning Enabling Act. And it says that a zoning ordinance shall be adopted after reasonable consideration of those comments. So I do want to make sure that the Planning Commission has an opportunity, to the extent that it hasn't, really go through that letter and make sure it understands it. If it has questions, ask council those questions. I know Cascade is a community where a Planning Commission recommendation isn't a check the box thing. I think the Planning Commission, this Planning Commission obviously operates at a very high level. I think the recommendations from this Planning Commission carry weight to the Township Board. And so I'd like to make sure that you all have an opportunity to take a look at that letter, and we have an opportunity to engage in discussions with council, perhaps before you make a decision on a recommendation one way or the other of this ordinance. And so I guess the only other thing I'd say is one of the topics that we broached in that letter is the importance of incorporating the ALP and the AAP into the master plan. And I know MDOT sent a letter that said the same thing. That obviously hasn't happened yet. I'm glad to hear that you have an upcoming amendment to the master plan that you're working on right now. Maybe that's a way to, again, I think talk to the council about that. Council agrees with our interpretation of the shall be incorporated language in the statute, and maybe that's a place to do that. And then once we've done that, maybe it makes sense for us to have a discussion with the committee to see where the differences are in the ALP and the AAP and the zoning ordinance and the overlay. Because I think I know I heard you reference some things, but I know there's a lot in that ALP and the AAP, and that probably necessitates a little bit lengthier discussion in order to really flag all the issues so that we can have a good discussion on those points.
So we appreciate you coming forth and providing that. With that said, we will follow our counsel. You were our counsel, and now they are. So, and we want to work this out. And so, but we need to do what's right for our township. And if our council is telling us that DeWitt does correlate to this, we're going to follow that. So
that's fair. I just would love to have an opportunity to engage in some discussion on that point.
We had an opportunity for 2 years when you told your client not to communicate with us.
I don't know that that's accurate, but
that's what it was accurate. I mean, we had a dark time. You were advising your client not to talk to us. I mean, when your client was found responsible for poisoning our wells, there was a dark period where neither community talked to each other. Our supervisor called Tori and said, "Hey, I need help with water for my residents." You know what Tori did? Tori accused her of trying to solicit a bribe and hung up.
Well, we're here tonight
and we've opened that up. I'm just suggesting to you for a moment that I appreciate what you're saying, but we separated from your organization so that we didn't have a conflict, because we certainly felt that we did. And so while you can bring up things that you disagree with our council on, like, we're going to be listening to our council.
As you should listen to your council. I was just suggesting it would be perhaps appropriate for us to have a little bit more discussion on this point and we'll more fulsome examination of some of the comments that were submitted and some additional discussion before a decision was made on this issue. That's all.
Fair enough. Anybody else have any questions? Casey, I don't want to speak for the committee or the commission, but perhaps if they were agreeable to tabling this, would you be willing to put a list together? Again, the third component we'll cover with the master plan, but a list together that you'd like to see different, and then the subcommittee can meet potentially with Casey to go through that.
So yes, absolutely committing to more engagement. And at whatever level that is, it feels very awkward as a public hearing if that's staff to staff, if it's legal to legal, whatever that looks like, we'll absolutely commit to it. We previously reviewed the prior draft of this with very specific written comments, many of which weren't incorporated. So we can do that again on this version if that's helpful.
And if you have a specific map, right? I've walked you through the context of what we're trying to do, which is we want to see stormwater. We've had issues with stormwater. We can agree on that. So we want to be actively involved with stormwater, and we want to limit development east of that runway outside of aeronautical use. And I understand that we need to define what is aeronautical use. So I think if we could work with the subcommittee and with staff to do that, we can probably get to a common area. I would suggest not involving council or perhaps letting them deal directly with our council.
Okay.
Is that a reasonable request?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, because I'd be happy to start with Casey on one-on-one meetings and see if that's would be helpful for you guys as well. And if it's something we can bring back to the subcommittee, but
yeah,
I'd like to hear our legal counsel's opinion on this.
Once we close public hearing.
Okay.
Does any
well, before you start scheduling meetings, I guess I'd like to hear her opinion on this.
No, I'm not. I prefaced it by saying the commission would have to agree to table it, right? I don't know. Yeah. So, but I just wanted to see if there was openness to it, which it sounds like
absolutely
is. Great. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody on Zoom that wishes to speak? No. Anybody else?
I'd make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support. Member Rissy made the motion. Member Ringo supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thoughts? Would we like to hear from Leslie?
I would like to ask Leslie, and again, I appreciate him putting you on the spot.
Nope, absolutely. I'm happy
After what you've heard tonight, both in terms of questions from the commission and comments from during public hearing, is there anything that you would like to change about the version of the amended ordinance so that we came up with?
So the way that we've taken the comments from the airport, both in writing as well as the revised version that Casey was referencing that redlined the prior draft that we had developed and presented before the public hearing with the subsequent meeting of the committee and then revised it, was really, I think, the dispute between our opinion and the airport's legal counsel's opinion with respect to Act 95. It's my understanding from the revisions that were proposed by the airport, as well as the letters that we've received that, in my opinion, we've responded to quite in depth, is that the airport's position is that the township has no regulatory authority over any use within airport property. They rely on this section of Act 95 for that proposition, which we disagree with. And like I said, I believe addressed that at length, both referencing the DeWitt Charter Township case that we previously discussed, which was, I agree with David, it was interpreting a prior version of the statute. But I think it still is analogous to the current statutory scheme, as well as the overall intent of airport zoning authority, both from the Airport Zoning Act, as well as the Machine Zoning Enabling Act and the Aeronautics Code. Our opinion, like I said, was that the township has the ability to regulate non-aeronautical uses, regardless of whether or not those uses are on airport-owned property or not. I agree that a distinction between the definition or how we define what an aeronautical use is important. That is something we do address in the draft. We use the definition directly from the Aeronautics Code, which is not the definition that the township previously used. I thought it was important that we use the definition that the state uses to make it consistent so that there's no question as to what is considered an aeronautical use. But the airport relies on this alternative term defined in Act 95, which is airport facility, which is more broadly defined and could pretty much contemplate any use within airport property. Again, based on the analysis that we provided to the airport in response to the letter from, I believe it was in June, or I don't know when we sent that letter, a couple months ago, we don't believe that the way that they're interpreting that provision is consistent with the way it's drafted, as well as the way that the overall airport zoning statutory scheme is, interprets the township's ability to regulate property surrounding an airport or property within an airport as it relates to non-aeronautical uses. So I agree. I think that certainly it would be appropriate for the township during its master plan amendment process to consider amendments that would otherwise incorporate the airport layout plan and airport approach plan, as that is a requirement under the Zoning Enabling Act if they're not already referenced in the master plan. But I don't think that impacts the ability for the township to move forward on the draft as it's currently presented to the Planning Commission. To the extent that we would make amendments or suggest amendments to the map, I don't think that there's any question that the statute does not require the airport's zoning ordinance or zoning map as it overlays over an airport to mirror an airport approach plan or an airport layout plan. Although we could certainly use that as a tool to guide us. And if the Planning Commission wants to consider that, we can absolutely do so. But I think that the crux of a lot of the major issues between the township and the airport is really this issue of whether or not the airport or the township can regulate non-aeronautical uses on airport property. And I think that is kind of the sticking point from a policy standpoint and a legal standpoint. Some of these other concerns, as Casey mentioned, related to noise and, protecting the maneuvering in and out of the airport on the ends of the runways and those safety zones is certainly important. And I think that's absolutely something that we will want to consider as incorporating in our master plan when we consider that later this year. But as it relates to the amendments to the zoning ordinance, I don't think that I don't think it's fair to say that the subcommittee didn't consider the letters and the proposed revisions that the airport had presented. We did have subsequent meetings after, I think two meetings after the airport sent its revised version. And then we went through that based on our legal analysis. And the vast majority of those amendments were based on the airport's position that the township cannot regulate on airport property. So that's why some of those recommendations that they made were rejected and not incorporated into the final version that you have presented tonight. Is that consistent with your understanding?
Yeah, I think so. I think that is, and I mean, Casey mentioned it too. That big question is, I mean, what is aeronautical, what's airport, and what are we regulating? I think that is really the crux of the issue here. And then there's other ones we should address as well. But
Member Rowland.
Can we refresh who is on our airport subcommittee?
Like, you want to have them sound off?
Sure.
All right, go ahead, guys.
Okay. And it was, I believe
Wendy was
well,
on it
at one point.
Before
Again, member Engel replaced Wendy, or Wendy was just a fourth member?
No, I think member Engel replaced member Rapid.
He did.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So Wendy has had eyes on it as well as the three of you. Yes. Thank you.
I remember Rappin because it started in 2022.
It did.
Yeah. Remember who? I'm sorry, Rappin.
Number one.
Yeah, a couple things in the interest of good partnership. If the airport doesn't feel that we're being good communicators with them, then we need to be better, right? Just plain and simple. So we need to make an effort to make sure that they feel that we're communicating with them appropriately, right? So if we're responding to something, maybe we copy the letter that they sent. Hey, in response to the attached letter, here's our responses to that letter, so that there's no miscommunication or misunderstanding. And maybe we don't combine responses if there's multiple letters coming in and we're trying to do one response for all the letters. I think we need to break it up and make sure that, to show good partnership, that our communication is better. That's number one. Number two, I have some concerns about this amendment right here in front of us. I think I've stated my concern about hotels right there on Patterson, but after reading this, I'm looking at banks and credit unions. Now, again, if this stuff is inside the terminal, I don't have a problem with it. But I'm reading this used car sales. It's from selling fleets, beauty parlor and barber shops and dry cleaning. And again, if this stuff is inside the terminal, I'm okay. But I don't really want to see a shopping mall spring up there on Patterson Avenue because somebody decides like, hey, this is a good revenue stream and we can increase our profit margin. So I think that probably needs to be defined by saying maybe this stuff is allowed only in overlay C, not, anywhere else. I don't know. I'm concerned.
I think overlay C, Alan, consists of everything that's green. Is that correct, Scott?
No, because everything is green is AC one, isn't it?
Overlay C is the box that is between the runway.
The labeling was confusing. All right,
thank you. There you go, right?
That's why I wanted the clarification. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, I think we need to define where some of this stuff is allowed.
I would second that. And I guess my question is how much of that can we claim that section is by right, and then there's by special use permit. What is our ability in our rules to shuffle those between the boxes?
We can ask Leslie that.
Yeah, we certainly can. And I'll just note that a lot of these uses in that AC district are carried over from the existing version. I don't think we just created this list. A lot of this came directly from the current language. But to the extent that the Planning Commission wants to move some of them as special uses, I certainly don't have a problem with that, as long as they're not aeronautical, facilities, to the extent that we would have a limited ability to regulate them by special use permit.
I think the whole first section is aeronautical. It's subdented, right?
Yeah.
And then there's twice as long a list of non-aeronautical.
But maybe that should be categorized as non-aeronautical, because when you're reading this, I'm sorry, if I'm just reading this, there's airport facilities and then airport. There's no distinction between aeronautical and non-aeronautical.
That's the idea, is everything under the number one is aeronautical and everything else is non-aeronautical.
There's lack of parallelism, but
right.
So an airport museum and airport viewing area is non-aeronautical.
Correct.
And that's not confusing at all. Right?
Because
that's my point. Listen, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but that's not, we need to be more definitive here. This is the aeronautical section. This is the non-aeronautical section. I didn't get that distinction.
I think it's the transport of humans. Museums not helping the transport of humans. I think it's kind of
my only comment to that would be I don't want to say non-aeronautical and then this list to mean that this is an exclusive list of what is considered non-aeronautical. These are just examples and uses permitted in the AC district. So I just want to make sure that if we were to separately designate these as non-aeronautical, that is an exclusive list or an exhaustive list of what could be contemplated as a non-aeronautical use.
What if we define a list of what is aeronautical? It is. No,
Well,
I'm just saying, like, this is the aeronautical stuff, and if it doesn't fall on that list, then it's automatically assumed as non-aeronautical.
Well, that's kind of the way that it's currently drafted.
Okay, because I didn't get that. I mean, I see it says airport operations facilities.
One, and then all these are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, J.
Right.
That's the indent. So those are all the aeronautical, and then it goes
Right,
to
but here's the thing.
It then has a catch-all.
Airport operation facilities doesn't straight. I mean, that isn't, you know, maybe there should be something that says aeronautical in it. I mean, I know it says airport operation facilities, but to me, if I'm reading it, it just doesn't scream, hey, this is the aeronautical stuff, right? And I just think we need some.
Can I ask?
Yeah, of course.
Remember, Roland, you made a reference earlier about in your hypothetical example of the strip mall, right on Patterson,
right?
Are you really that passionate of what happens along Patterson? I mean, when I drive down Patterson, one side of the road is all built out as Kentwood, right? And the airport side is, you know, I mean, there's stuff here and there, but for the most part, it's open. Most of that is that trapezoid, if you will. But I mean, is that, I guess when I, you know, and maybe I'm speaking on the committee's behalf here, but when we put this together, we looked specifically at what the zoning currently was, and we wanted to try and leave the airport some flexibility in some areas of what they currently had. But we certainly wanted to steer development out of other areas, particularly the east side, right? Because they showed an initiative to develop their property in ways other than what was an aeronautical nature. Whereas in the past, they predominantly were in the business of aeronautics, not in the business of other things. And so that's really what steered this. But I mean, I guess my question is, are you focused solely on preventing them from having any kind of outside aeronautical business, or are you open to that being somewhere?
So I'm open to that being somewhere, right? I just don't want it, like, I don't want a gas station on the backside. I don't want a gas station right there. If you want a hotel, push it back in next to the parking ramp. Okay. I mean, listen, Cascade is a pretty township, right? But if we allow things to be built up, right, and become more urban, then we lose our suburban feel, right? And that's the first thing people see when they go to the airport, you know, a nice, beautiful, green, rolling, open area. I love the way that when you come out, it's got that big sweeping right turn. I think that was the best idea anybody ever came up with, right? But I think big, and nobody's going to put a 2-story hotel there. It's going to be a dreary, it's, you know, 8-story monstrosity. Boom. I mean, nobody's going to, I mean, I just.
You have to remember too, the airport has their own restrictions and it may not work.
Yeah.
So that's something where additional conversation might be helpful. We hear from them, hey, it only is possible here, here, or here.
Yeah.
It might not be possible by.
And I'm open to that. I just don't want to get, listen, and it's not necessarily the airport either. I mean, we just had an issue with a developer, right? 2, actually. You know, if somebody's going to come in and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to do this really cool gas station right here. I mean,
may I try and answer your question in a different way? I'm not passionate about more development on there. I just don't want a self-fulfilling prophecy. All that I've heard since I've been in this seat is that Patterson has more accidents in Kent County than any other street, and we're going to remove the sweeps to make it safer, which boggles my brain, to be completely honest. I'm not sure how throwing more traffic into an intersection makes it safer. And then we're going to do a curb cut within 100 feet and have a second drive parallel to Oostma on the back, what's currently the car lots. And then we're going to build a hotel and a strip mall on a road that they're saying is currently unsafe. Why would we enable them to make it more unsafe? So they can then ask for a drive through what we just zoned agriculture. I'm afraid that if we enable them to do that, they can then come back and use it against us later and say, well, now we need a safer exit.
But can I respond to that? Whatever let's hypothetically, let's say that they come in and they want to build a strip mall or a hotel at the corner of Oostma and Patterson. Okay. They have to come in front of the planning commission for site plan approval. Am I wrong? Under this version.
Correct. Yep.
So they're going to come in just like everybody else, and we can discuss traffic studies and all that kind of stuff, just like we would with any other applicant. If they want an 8-story hotel, they're not in the expressway service district, I don't believe. So they're not going to be able to get the height that the jury has. I mean, there's our ordinances are in play in some of this stuff if they're coming in for site plan reviews. And that area outside of overlay C, they have to go through that same process that Timmy would if he was trying to develop some property in Centennial Park. So, this is hypothetical. I know you're not trying to.
Yeah, I'm innocent.
But listen, I guess there's a process, and I guess I have to have some faith in the process. Otherwise, none of this is.
But if we don't want it there, then why waste their time and ours? Right? That's not where we want it. Find another place. These areas we don't want it. So don't waste our time. Don't waste theirs. Coming here and saying.
I agree completely. And we had 25 meetings, and we've discussed it at the planning commission several times. This was the draft that the planning commission put forward. And I mean, if you want to alter it again, I guess we can do that as the planning commission. I feel like it's time to move on. But,
yeah. And see, I feel it's time to do it right before you move on. I mean, and that's fine. And
I'm confident in the plan we have, but I'm open-minded.
Yeah, I don't want to move on just because it's time. I want to move on because it's
right. Would you like to make a motion? I'm gonna let everybody have it speak first.
Timmy?
All right, my way, there wouldn't be any more hotels in this township based on current events today of 8 people being arrested for sex trafficking.
Here.
At one of our hotels. So that's my comment today.
It's part of business development, isn't it?
There's business development.
Wrong kind.
Okay. Do I hear a motion, Member Rissy?
Nobody else has discussion. Make a motion to recommend amending the zoning ordinance pertaining to the airport commerce zoning district as presented.
Support.
Motion made by Member Rissy to make a recommendation to amend zoning as written, supported by Member Engel. Brian, if you would call the roll.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Member Richardson.
Yes.
Member Moxley.
Yes.
Member Nordike.
Yes.
Member Engel.
Yes.
Member Risi.
Yes.
Member Bruno.
Yes.
Member Roland.
No.
Motion passes. We'll go in front of the township board, Casey, so there's still an opportunity if you'd like to see some changes to it. I think the master plans where we're ultimately going to have our opportunity to make sure we're aligned. So Brian, let's make sure that McKenna is including them in the process. So and any meeting that we have that is open, you're welcome to. So including subcommittees in the future. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that. Like you are, as our community partner, welcome at any of those meetings. So
absolutely.
All right.
Thank you for sitting through this.
Yes. All right, my computer just died.
Do you have an idea when that's going to the board?
I would think at the August, I believe it's August, that second August, the second meeting in August, I think it's August 23rd.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Moving on to Article 9, old business. I got a couple of things, and then I think there are some others that do. First of all, Ms. Abdu, thank you so much for coming in. appreciate the late night.
Of course.
The Wormies has been sent back to us.
Oh, no.
We will address that in the first meeting in September.
I knew that was going to happen.
So I think in talking to a few trustees, there are a few things that we can do to get it there, a few things that we can do to get it to the citizens there. So be ready. It will be coming to us that first meeting in September. As I mentioned before, the McKenna will be here to walk us through the process. I think, do we have anything else in 2 weeks besides that?
I believe there's just one special use permit for an accessory building.
Okay. You will,
yeah, they've done kind of a preliminary review of the master plan and have suggestions of areas to look at to bring it in line with the strategic plan. So it's kind of the first step of their review. So they'll have a memo kind of outlining that and are prepared to present that to this group at our next meeting.
It's the 21st.
21st.
Yes.
Vice Chair Moxley will move to the chairman's seat for that meeting.
Ooh,
yep.
Keep it to 15 minutes.
Beach, I like it.
The greatness of that is if he does it at 15 minutes, is it?
Ouch.
Yeah. I will attempt to be here for that part of the meeting because it's not a deliberation via Zoom. But I am pushing McKenna, and I would appreciate if you all agree with me to help push them. I want something done by the end of the year. I think we owe it to our citizens to get there. I certainly don't want to have speed get in the way of getting it done right, but I think we can do both. So so that's coming in front of you. What else, Brian, from any other old business before I open it up?
Nothing's coming to mind for me.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to mention that as I mentioned at the last meeting, I'd be happy to put together notebooks that has all of the airport rezoning notes included in it to supply to the Board of Trustees. And I'd work with Brian to make sure that we have everything up to date and accurate on that. If that's okay with you folks.
And one thing we might want to consider adding, if it's not already in there, is all of those letters that we received from MDOT and the airport, as well as our responses that might be helpful to clarify what we did address and, you know, the differences between the legal conclusions on those issues that might be helpful.
Okay. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is the property at, I think it's 6480 Cascade Road that we struggled with over the last couple of years. It's totally cleaned up. I mean, it looks great. I don't know if anybody's living in there right now. I only saw one car there in the last month, but everything's been cleaned up. It's like a miracle.
We should drop off pies.
Yeah.
So we should. I mean, we complained about that. You and I complained about it every other meeting. Finally got them out. So
Madison did a lot of work to do that. Once work with the property owner.
Well done. Well done.
Okay. Any other?
Are we on any other business or are we on old business?
Are we on new business? What are we?
We're either or.
Is this?
I do have some new business. I got new business. Wait a minute. My new business is I would like to recognize that Member Richardson does not have a hat on. And if I had a beautiful head of hair like that, I would never wear a hat.
You are not kidding, right?
Look at that.
You know what it takes.
Beautiful head of hair. On the record.
I mean, to have those genetics and wear a hat.
That was a beautiful moment.
That was. All right. All right. Member Bruneau and then Member Rissy.
So this is only the second time I've brought up new business, and I'm not really sure like where this goes, if it goes in the circular file, but I brought up some stuff before about the whole concept of better roads. Like how do we stop, doing all these private streets, bridges to nowhere. I'd like to bring up two new ones. And again, I'm not sure where they go or if it's meaningful. I guess maybe it goes on the record. So we were hit. I had 2 cars robbed in my driveway at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I turned the camera system off to go mow. I was in my backyard and I believe I was targeted. Someone was probably pretty bright and says, okay, if somebody's out mowing, they probably can't hear us. And if he's out mowing, he's probably turned off his motion system, and we were robbed. So it's real. If you're reading it on Nextdoor, we were hit, and it is what it is. So keep your cars locked or whatever. I'm not sure anything we can do with that or bring awareness or patrols or something. Item number 2 is obviously I'm new to this role, and I've dabbled in kind of.
Yeah, that's only going to work for a couple more
months.
months.
Okay. Okay. Do I get a year? I don't get a year. Okay.
I think Brian and I are still waiting on something on the.
Oh, you are. Yep. Yeah, so that's true. That's true. So, but I did try to keep my finger on the pulse on the community a little bit. And I know there were some PFAS meetings about specifically LAX, which is now Watermark, and then the airport. And I think as far as I understand, we've addressed the airport. I think that continued to linger well beyond those initial meetings. I think LAX and Watermark, as I understood it, which may be completely wrong because I wasn't in this role, they did some peripheral well testing and said, yeah, it doesn't look like it really spread. And that was kind of it. I don't know of anything that really came of that. And maybe something did.
LAX connected people to water years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. There is another one. I serve on the PFAS committee. We haven't had a meeting because of the change in manager in a while. There is another potential plume.
Well, that's okay. That's where I'm going with this. Let me
but it is certainly your call to mention it, but perhaps don't provide specificity on it.
I'm not providing any because I don't have any. That's the beautiful part. I know very little about it.
All right. I've been
extremely shallow knowledge.
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That's good. I've been made aware of a household that we are familiar with who is not very far from me, was approached by Eagle saying, hey, we are investigating a potential plume and we would like to have your water tested. Now, what I don't know is how big of an area that is, who all was approached. Is the township aware of who was approached? Is that information shared with our residents? Because in my role, I'm not aware of any of it. I'm not sure if it would cross, but as a citizen, if I can flip my hat, did I accidentally toss that letter? Did I get that letter? Was it a one-time mailing and I looked at junk mail and threw it over my shoulder? Should I be tested? I think we owe it to our citizens to have a partnership with Eagle. If Eagle believes there's another plume, we should have a map of it on our website so our residents know definitively, are they in the possible plume or not?
They don't know if there's a plume yet.
But they have a guess, right?
Well, 1 or 2 houses have popped.
Okay.
I'm reluctant to say where it is. I don't want to put that stigma until it is. Addison, are we doing, or Brian, are we doing anything with Eagle? They operate as their own thing, right? We've had the partnership because we've had to deal with it. And the PFAS committee that is meeting today is almost exclusively focused on the water remediation that's happening. It was just brought to our attention on the periphery at a lunch so that's how I have knowledge of it, not because but
yeah, I'm not directly involved with that, but if I'm recalling correctly, I thought we did send out mailings to a specific area saying, hey, Eagle is doing testing. I'm not 100% because I wasn't directly involved. I think that would be the manager's office if they were in place.
A certain citizen is listening or reads these minutes and they want to know, were they a target of the mailing? They can call the township and we'll let them know if they were a target.
I think
Jessica's in the loop. She's
assistant to the manager's office. She was the one that was helping with that.
I think she's out for a day or two, but she was in that lunch at that lunch that I was at. So
thank you. Yes, that's much as I know.
Yeah, member Rissy and member.
And interesting, you brought that up because the recent heavy rain we had about a week or so ago, we picked up like 2 inches of rain in a very short period of time. And there was some very, very white, distinct foam on the east side of the Thornapple River coming out of tributaries in that area, which previously I was told by Eagle that there was not any PFAS on that side and that it would not have carried across the river from the airport. But it sure did look like, I'm not saying that's what it was. I'm just saying that in that direction, that raised some concern. We actually scheduled a test of our well because, I was that concerned.
Let's not go in. If the foam is a tell, right? If you say it's a tell.
If it's that bright, it's, it looks like it. It certainly raised concern for further investigation from my perspective. The other items I wanted to mention is I noticed at the last township board meeting, there was, I think it was the last time, it might not have been the last township board meeting, but there was a township board meeting in July, and there are two items that were discussed at that meeting. One of them was Jake brakes or compression brake usage on Thornton River Drive. Trustee Nordic probably remembers these conversations. And there was another item that came across there, and they both seemed to me to be, and I forget what the other item was. I'd have to watch the meeting again. But both of those seem to me to be simple topics to handle or address with creation of an ordinance. And so I guess my question is that something, it seemed to me that that's something that would generally start at the planning commission at the request of the township board, but the conversation at the township board that never really came up. And so I just wanted to throw that out there that, you know, I'd certainly support looking into that in the residential area. I think that, I mean, I drive through communities all the time. They have those signs up that say they have ordinances about that stuff.
Yeah, I think Ted's working on that, checking into what other communities are doing before he comes back with a recommendation. But I really think all these gravel haulers were coming from our water system being installed.
Well, they may very well be. I don't disagree, but I guess what I'm getting at is that, I mean, Brian, would it be correct to say that generally that is not something the township manager works on? It's generally something that the planning.
I would say the manager or supervisor would direct certain staff to work on. We haven't had that direction yet, so he might be working on himself and then might give some in the future.
You just gathering some information.
Yeah, and then I guess my last item tonight would be I think I've sat through at least a half dozen, maybe more meetings. We've had legal counsel do here, and the name tag says Michael Holmeyer. And I don't know what it takes to get this woman a proper name tag, but it's pretty clear that she's the legal counsel that usually attends these meetings. And I think we should get her a proper name tag.
Here, here.
So I don't know how to make that
to Mike tonight.
Should we just replace Mike's, throw that one out? And
well, I've only seen him here one time, but I've seen her here several. So that's yeah.
Awesome. Member Moxley and then Member Engel.
Just a quick one. EGLE did test our water. I don't remember the exact PFAS number on it, but they did offer us a free filtration system. I'd have to hire a plumber to install it, but they said, come in and pick it up. I'll find out exactly what the PFAS number was.
Can I ask two questions? So is it safe to assume that you are over the recommended level if they're going to give you a filter?
Yes.
Okay.
But we do drink bottled water.
Okay. And either now or afterwards, so I'm curious where you live. I don't know.
After, if you don't mind, I don't want.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect.
The conversation. The county is offering free filters and $300 for installation.
Well, we still have water that he can, if he's, or is it just that area that?
I think he's entitled.
I think he's entitled
call
to.
the Kent County Health Department.
Thank you.
I think you'll get free bottled water is my point from Cascade. Yeah.
And yeah, we can do that too.
Yeah. So are you drinking the 5 gallon things?
No,
well,
1 gallon.
If you want the
purchase it at a local grocery store.
Well, if you want the 5 gallon, I think you'd get it for free. So
can you elaborate on that? Is that available to all citizens if you test above a certain level? Like I don't know.
If you have, Timmy led that program,
so yeah, it was in the areas where they had the testing.
Yeah, okay.
Where they had the PFAS, where we're doing the water system now.
Okay, so Berger and stuff like that. So he'd be eligible.
I think because he's in that new plume, which I know.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
For this test and the Kent County Health Department, they should give them a new filter free and $300 for installation.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
I can get with you afterwards. There's a bunch of stuff that you can get.
Okay.
Okay. Member Engel.
2 quick things on the noise issue. I've heard from a resident above the dam up by Scott twice about wake boats playing incredibly excessive noise music while they're enjoying ripping up the banks. And I wondered on their behalf what what the recourse would be. Do they have to go out and identify these people and call the Kent County Sheriff's Department? We have a noise ordinance. I just don't know what the enforcement mechanism would be.
Yeah, it's only at night though. The noise ordinance really kicks in the residential area. Yeah, which is not much shit you're going to be able to do in the middle of the day with our current ordinances.
So seriously, it's at night only.
Yeah, it was 11 p.m.
Yeah,
7 a.m.
We can check that, but yeah, there might be.
See, with knowledge like that, I can think I'm new for a long time.
The commercial district is, I believe the commercial district is 10 p.m. if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But residential is 11. But even if your sound carries from residential to commercial, you then have to go with the commercial time. I know I have some research on this. I debated it extensively with the Kent County Sheriff's Department and Brian's predecessor because we launched some fireworks at 9 p.m. and they told me that we couldn't do that anymore because we were interfering with the ordinance, which goes into effect at 11.
The commercial cutoff comes earlier than the residential.
It's at 10.
It does.
Commercial
yes.
is 10.
So we don't have any ordinances that regulate sound during the day.
No, but I believe apparently Kent County might have something. I don't know if that's indifferent, but I'm pretty sure ours would not.
General regulation, it shall be unlawful for any person to make continued cause be made any continued loud, unreasonable, necessary, unusual noise or any noise which either noise disturbs, injures, or endangers the comfort, repose, health, peace, or safety of any other persons. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, we can look into it more. I don't know if
it's not limited to night, and that's the reason I asked that.
There's much stricter limitations at night.
Okay. So if they want to come, what's the enforcement mechanism, Brian? What's the best way to proceed?
Yeah, I work with Madison on that. That'll be difficult for people on the water because obviously we can't go out there
and I appreciate that. I just am trying to give them an answer here.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that a little bit more and we can get back to you.
Can he direct them to contact Madison?
Yep. Yeah.
So he's out in the middle of this?
Yeah.
Okay.
The last thing I have, I want to thank Scott for thanklessly chairing this AC subcommittee for all these many meetings and hours and coordinating it and bringing people in, working with the airport, working with all the members of the committee. For usually you did an excellent job, and all you've done is guarantee that you'll be the next chair of the next committee.
I don't know if I should thank you or if I should
really
throw something at you.
And I think we all should.
I second that.
Well, gee, that brings up something else.
It does, but before we go there, let's remember Richardson has been patiently waiting.
I just have a couple things. One, I'm still concerned about the Cascade Road to Whitneyville situation. I mean, it's one thing in the summertime, but in the winter, I mean, I see that they redid the lines by a foot or whatever, but I don't know where to go with this, but I can see that it's potential for catastrophe when trucks in the snow. I mean, there are a lot of like other roads where you have a fork in the road. For example, M37 at Parmalee. It's a very easy down south of Caledonia.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost the opposite of the scenario at Cascade and Whitneyville. And I really would like someone somehow to look into that. I don't know where to take this, but to me,
Road Commission,
incredibly dangerous currently.
So the road commission and Brian might be able to put you in touch.
Okay.
Our township engineer has been in contact with them, and I don't know the answer he got, but he's the one that would kind of.
So Eric, do you know Eric?
I do not.
So Brian can put you in touch with Eric.
Okay. And then the second thing I wanted to bring up. So, like on today's agenda, Article 6, acknowledge those wishing to speak, comments limited to 5 minutes per speaker. We were given quite the performance earlier today when, a team of coordinated people gave us like a 30-minute plus presentation that they just divided up into 6 5-minute segments. I mean, at one point, clever, but annoying. And I think it goes against the spirit of these meetings when someone literally stands up and says, "Oh, where did we leave off?" A new speaker stands up and says, "Where did we leave off?" And then continues on with, their packet. Is there anything that we can or should do to prevent this sort of loophole in the future, or is that okay?
No, it's funny.
I'd like to hear our legal.
Well, Brian and I had this conversation earlier today because I was in kind of the same camp you were, and I think we said that we've never had we've never limited it in the past. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, that's a tough one because it's you can't say that each, only one person one representative from each group can speak at any given time. You have to allow every individual person the ability to speak if they want to. That said, I do have clients that in their rules or in their, when they make their preliminary, comments with respect to, how we're going to handle public comment or a public hearing, we ask that if you are that that they do so. But you're right. I mean, it is kind of a loophole, but I don't think we could say, they're not all allowed to speak, unfortunately.
I mean, are people allowed to just hand off, here you go, continue on like that? Like, I mean, they didn't even have their own separate packets of information. Meanwhile, other people had to wait patiently while this movie processed.
Could I maybe ask that a different way? Could we have proactively
But thank you.
told them before we're like when we were having, we do have a discussion first, right? Then we open it. Could we say we've all been provided this digitally? We've all gotten a handout. You just had it here again. It might be better to use your time for something like it was just a regurgitation. I don't know why I spent an hour reading this when they told me the exact same thing again.
We had that conversation, like, because I'm in the same camp that you are. Like, I didn't want to subject everybody to it. Right. I'm trying to keep my record of low mates. And, we determined that like we couldn't based on it being an open meeting, like if people want to speak. And
like I said, you can always ask, you can always say, hey, if you really want to persuade us, we've already had an opportunity to review this packet. We have it. If there's anything else you want to add, but you can't say, no, you can't speak. Now to cut them off, going forward, Chris could say, okay, we're going to call on this person next. And, they're not entitled to be in order. It's just who kind of either gets up first or, Chair Nordike could say, okay, raise your hand and pick somebody else. They're not entitled to speak in succession. So
I just don't want to get into a situation where we have two opposing viewpoints on an issue and we have one person representing themselves and they get 5 minutes while the other guy brings in 40 people to just speak for 2 hours.
We've had this happen before many times where there's a organized group.
Yeah.
And you're right, throwing in a random occasionally does help break it up. But also, I remember I don't know what it was. I think it was like Square Plains or something. There was a development of a shape and we got numerous packets brought to us in that process. And
they came to our house.
And rather than
remember that.
Yeah, they showed up.
Rather than so funny. Rather than have them regurgitate the document, the chair simply, said, hey, look, I've read this. Just give us the highlight reel. And usually they would dial it back a bit and not read it word for word. And maybe as a committee, we need to try to be proactive in seeing what's coming and try to do those steps to break it up. But I think the reality is the person has 5 minutes to talk. They can say whatever they want. They could talk about the moon.
Sing a song. Yeah. Is there a way that we could or would even want to maybe limit some of the public comments to people or their representatives that actually live in Cascade? We get a lot of people from Caledonia, Grand Rapids.
Can't do that.
Can't do that.
Township.
Can't do that.
Okay.
But we can ask them where they're from. They don't have to answer it, but that's why I was doing it. I was trying to make a point so that you all understood where you were hearing your message.
Good idea, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people are afraid to speak if they're out of Cascade. They think like, well, we're going to send them away because a lot of times, you know, they skirt around the address.
Any interested party is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, I'll give it to them. They've certainly garnered, I mean, and as you've seen in their packet, you know, letters from other developers and, you know, business owners in the area. They certainly have gotten a lot of people to vouch for them, but at the same time, you know, that's only one facet of your consideration, and people who are opposed can do the same.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Now that Member Rissy has concluded his work with the AC subcommittee, it is time for him to start a new subcommittee around farmland preservation. He sent an email out.
Thanks for the opportunity.
He was already appointed at the last planning commission meeting, so this is
reluctantly
a lifetime appointment. And so Mr. Richardson, you were not here, and we wanted to make sure that we gave you the opportunity because you have expressed a passion in serving in this when we brought it up before. So who is interested in joining Scott for this wonderful journey?
I received replies from Member Bruno, Member Moxley. I believe Member Engel had approached me at the last meeting.
Okay.
Said he would participate.
I'm supportive of the subcommittee and willing to help in an auxiliary way. I don't think I could make the 7 a.m. meetings, for example. I'm often enough to be a worthwhile member.
Okay.
Fair enough. So you have your subcommittee?
It sounds like I do. We just have to discuss the time that works for us. And obviously anybody's welcome to come to those meetings. The reason I brought up that we had 25 meetings about the airport is because if I remember clearly, they came to one.
Yeah.
They could have come to all 25. So there's, you know, anybody's welcome to come. So.
May I ask for clarification? You're not expecting anywhere near 25 for farmland preservation.
Gosh, I hope not. I wasn't expecting 25 for that.
When you said that to me, I was thinking, boy, did I actually volunteer for another committee?
Yeah.
Just be aware. I mean, it is a broad topic, so
it is.
It's not going to be short. So,
but not contentious, maybe as much.
No, I think it's more reviewing what we're doing and reviewing the surrounding communities and just making sure that I think it's more or less a review, really, to see where we're at. We might not change anything. We might change everything. We got to dig in and see what it is.
I met, there was another lunch that was around farmland preservation that I was asked to attend. I'll make some introductions. There are some people with the state that are interested in being ex officio members or at least presenting to you all.
Okay.
So I'll make sure that connection's made. And
wonderful.
Jenny's also been involved in that, so you can get it from her too. So, okay. Anybody else have anything else? Yes, Member Moxley.
One thing, I talked to Madison some time ago about the junkyard on Grand River Avenue, near the sand pit or whatever it is, near Peace Park. And she's talked to them and it's been cleaned up. It looks a whole lot better.
Awesome.
Nice.
Nice work, Madison.
That's good.
You're winning tonight.
Oh, what did you do?
I didn't do much. We sent a letter and kind of started a conversation. They did speak to Brian one time, and we've talked about setting up a time to come out there to start a plan, but they said they were slowly doing things. So I'm glad to hear that.
Looks a lot better.
Good.
It's fantastic.
Trustee Nordhook.
Motion to adjourn.
Hang on. Second. Hang on. She can't do it. Can't do it. Okay. Article 11. We do need to acknowledge any visitors who are wishing to speak. And we have a visitor here. You're welcome to come forward and speak. Nice try.
He must have something important to say.
He's been here this long. We owe him the respective.
It's the second time.
So I'm Mike Ismauskas. I live on 1769 Little Lake Drive. I am in the same boat as Mr. Moxley here. I got a call from Eagle. I think it was a week ago. I got the letter about, I don't know when I got the letter, but My question to the council, and I really want to thank all you guys on the board here for your time and listening to all of the craziness. I think you do a good job. But I do have PFAS in my water, and I wanted to kind of open up a way to maybe, and my neighbor has the same thing. Can we get the whole wax thing a little more involved in helping us connect to maybe city water?
So I would encourage you, the supervisor has been leading our PFAS advisory board. And as much as I hate to welcome you to that, welcome. There's information there, and I think they're as a planning commission, we're not. It's out of our purview, but as a member of that.
Well, I just thought you did a pretty good job at the airport.
Yeah, well, they don't feel that way.
I don't care what they feel.
Yeah, and you can see my passion as it relates to that.
Yeah, I have full appreciation for it.
Yes, and I'd be happy to help you offline. Yes, there are resources, but are they organized yet? No, because we just dealt with one area and we didn't expect this one on the back of it, but we have been through it now, so we can help you.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and I can connect you to Patty, who is the chair of that committee as well, and kind of help you through this. And, we're going to have to effectively start over. I will tell you, it took us 2-3 years with the airport.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I did see that there's like a PFAS committee or something on that.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah. And the only thing I could get on the posting was the last meeting's minutes is about the paths, about the paths.
You came up right afterwards, and so when our manager left, we've had a bit of a continuity breach. So Jessica is going to be your staff contact. And again, if you give me your contact information, I'll send you an email connecting you to all the right people, and I'll connect you as well since you're affected, and help you down this path.
All right. That's all I wanted to.
Yeah.
I greatly appreciate your time.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Write down your email for me. Okay. So, all right. Now.
No, we have a public comment on Zoom.
All right.
It's Grace.
Hi, Grace.
Grace, you should be able to speak now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say hi. I just wanted to say thank you. Everyone's doing really hard work, really important work, and I very much appreciate how seriously you guys are taking your roles. So it's a long meeting. This must be like what it's like for other people when they watch board meetings and you're just like really good stuff, but it takes forever. And then once you're committed, you can't turn it off. So one, thank you. And this is all really important stuff that has a huge impact on Cascade residents. You guys are underappreciated. Most people won't realize the work you're doing, but I see it. And I personally need your help. So I appreciate that. To the PFAS that was mentioned tonight, the newer cases that are separate from the neighborhoods that are clearly established to be airport PFAS, that's all pretty new. And we did send a letter out, but we don't know a lot at this point. And the state, it's really Eagle is still investigating it, and Eagle, so it's really there. The township isn't as involved in this at this point early on, other than to stay in the know and to pass on everything that we know to residents as soon as we know it, and then kind of proactively advocate for them. But the key is Eagle, and we'll share it all on our website. And then the tricky part is that I hope won't last forever. In this one, the other one, we knew it was airport, and this one, a source hasn't been located yet. So that makes it a little hard as far as seeking reimbursement, but it's not impossible. We'll get there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Trustee Nordhook.
No. Motion to adjourn.
Support by Member Engel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night.